Chapter 420. Anchored at the Year 1, Great Zon, the peak of Xieli Mountain. Li Fan, a 20-year-old youth, stood alone on the mountain peak, his hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the distant sea of clouds. The sun rose from the east, radiating a myriad of rays, dyeing the clouds a fiery red. Though young, Li Fan's eyes held a hint of weariness. After 3,000 years have passed, it seems that it has not been without an impact on me. Li Fan sighed softly. The moment he returned to the peak of Xieli Mountain through automatic open black lens bracket truth close black lens bracket, the events he had experienced during his time as an inanimate object surged back like a tidal wave. It was a period of time far longer than the combined lifespan of all the hundreds of lives he had lived as a human since his transmigration. Even though he couldn't retain all the details as a human, even though most of those 3,000 years were spent as a solitary object, lying on the desolate ground of a ruined world, the sheer volume of memories he absorbed from the open black lens bracket formation breaking jade disc close black lens bracket in a short span of time had left its mark. Thankfully, it took him almost a day to completely eliminate the negative effects and organize the history of the Xuanwang realm for the past 3,000 years after his demise. Some things, such as the struggle between the Zon net and cultivators, were predictable even before he became inanimate. But Li Fan hadn't expected the Xuanwang realm to be destroyed in a mere 1,000 years. What happened to the people of the open black lens bracket overwhelming heaven society close black lens bracket after they obtained the formation blueprint of the Tianxuan spirit locking formation? Logically, even if the battle was fierce, one side should have won a decisive victory. How could it seem like they both perished? Li Fan couldn't help but feel a pang of helplessness. At the most crucial moment, Han Wuyu, that rascal, had pulled the plug, resulting in a loss of information for hundreds of years. But I can't blame him, Li Fan thought. With the decisive battle between the open black lens bracket overwhelming heaven society close black lens bracket and the Zon net looming, the open black lens bracket formation breaking jade disc close black lens bracket, which was sent by a descendant of my former acquaintance, was filled with suspicious details. It even knew about the absolute secret of the locking spirit formation blueprint. It was necessary to be cautious. At that time, he had already become a nascent soul cultivator, no longer the innocent and naive boy he once was. The final battle was a matter of life and death for countless cultivators of the open black lens bracket overwhelming heaven society close black lens bracket. TL note. It should be in soul transformation stage but maybe MC was not able to perceive it. It's understandable that he chose to seal me away. For the sake of the open double angle bracket crucible of 10,000 forms close double angle bracket, I won't hold it against you. Li Fan smiled faintly and extended his hand, capturing a black feathered, red-tailed bird from a tree on the mountain peak. Spiritual energy flowed through its body as he closed his eyes and concentrated. After half a day, Li Fan abruptly opened his eyes. He released the bird and took a deep breath. A golden light enveloped his body, and within the glow, Li Fan's form began to shrink. In the blink of an eye, a bird identical to the one he had just released appeared on the peak of Xieli Mountain, completely devoid of any cultivator's aura. Even the black-feathered, red-tailed bird treated Li Fan as one of its kind, curiously approaching him for a closer look. Han Wuyu, that kid, is truly talented. He was able to comprehend and cultivate such a divine technique from the open double angle bracket heavenly Dr. Immortal scripture close double angle bracket at the golden core stage. Li Fan exclaimed, returning to his original form, startling the black-feathered, red-tailed bird away. After Li Fan's body was transformed into an inanimate object and refined with Han Wuyu's blood essence, a peculiar connection formed between them. This allowed Li Fan, even with only a sliver of his true spirit remaining, to observe and perceive the world through Han Wuyu's eyes. Therefore, when Han Wuyu comprehended and cultivated the open double angle bracket crucible of 10,000 forms close double angle bracket, Li Fan, who was also well versed in the open double angle bracket heavenly Dr. Immortal scripture close double angle bracket, learned the technique simultaneously. Unfortunately, as he grew older and stronger, especially after the deaths of Xiao Heng and the others, his personality changed. Even the open black lens bracket formation breaking jade disc close black lens bracket, which he had carried with him since childhood, became tinged with suspicion. I couldn't sense his nascent soul cultivation techniques after that. But even if I had known, it wouldn't have mattered. The open double angle bracket chaos world transcendence technique close double angle bracket is most likely still in the possession of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Li Fan shook his head, returning his focus to the future trajectory of the Xuanwang realm. Until the year 711, when I was sealed away, although many things seemingly occurred, they could be categorized into two groups. One group was events that were destined to happen according to the established historical trajectory of the Xuanwang realm. For example, in the year 51, the blue feather immortal Venerable failed to achieve longevity. As Li Fan recalled the reverberating, "Who is it?" that echoed through the heavens before blue feather's complete disappearance, he couldn't help but frown slightly. And for hundreds of years, the anomalies in the Xuanwang realm became increasingly rampant. Eventually, they even reached the point where they could be used to mass-produce the open black lens bracket stellar ruining arrows close black lens bracket. I wonder if the ultimate destruction of the Xuanwang realm was related to these anomalies. Right, there was also that group of 10,000 Immortals Alliance cultivators who emerged from the age-devouring white mist, seemingly alive despite being dead. Li Fan suddenly paused, a glimmer of insight flashing in his eyes. Blue Feather's failed attempt at achieving longevity, and the cultivators who emerged from the white mist, seemingly unaware of their deaths. Could it be, during my 12th life, I learned from that black-clothed Tao integration that before his demise, Blue Feather Immortal Venerable had set up the open black lens bracket devouring origin. Rebirth Great Formation close black lens bracket, attempting to reverse the law of life and death to achieve longevity. Judging from the outcome, he ultimately failed. The phrase, "Who is it?" has two possible interpretations. One is that someone disrupted Blue Feather's process of defying the laws of heaven. The other is, Li Fan narrowed his eyes, the law of life and death has been reversed by someone. The path to longevity has been occupied, and he was completely unaware of it, which is why Blue Feather was so unwilling to accept it. There are only a handful of longevity venerables in this world. Blue Feather, as an old-timer in Tao integration, shouldn't be ignorant of how they achieved their status. This means that there is a powerful individual in this world who has achieved longevity venerable status silently, without anyone noticing. Li Fan found this speculation unbelievable, but also felt a surge of emotion. Blue Feather, in order to activate the devouring origin rebirth great formation, didn't hesitate to sacrifice the lives of countless cultivators in the Yuandao province. Yet, he himself couldn't escape being manipulated by a being of ultimate power. Longevity Venerable, the thoughts and actions of those at such a level are truly unfathomable and beyond comprehension. In my previous life, the battle between the open black lens brackets on net close black lens bracket and cultivators was incredibly fierce, but these longevity venerables seemed to have vanished collectively. They never appeared throughout the entire ordeal. Even as cultivators were on the verge of extinction, they remained indifferent. Li Fan had his own theories about why this was the case. The key lay in the towering golden obelisks that the open black lens brackets on net close black lens bracket had constructed throughout the Xuanwang realm after taking control. The obelisks had shot beams of light into the sky 4 times in total. Li Fan speculated that the Heavenly Alliance might have been using the golden obelisks to propel the entire Xuanwang realm out of the influence of the open black lens bracket immortal ruins close black lens bracket. Chapter 421. To push forward the entire world, the required power is immense. Only the Heavenly Alliance, which unified the Xuanwang realm, could consolidate all resources. And perhaps, only with the Tianquan Mirror's extraordinary coordination and calculation capabilities, can it be achieved. This explains why the longevity venerates remained silent about the Tianquan Mirror's actions, even actively promoting the merger of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the 5 Elders Association. Because once successful, they will also completely escape the threat of the immortal ruins. The void is vast, from then on they will be free and unrestrained. They will no longer need to stay in this small patch of land, the Xuanwang realm. What do the lives of cultivators have to do with them? Even if it fails, there will be no loss for the longevity venerates. After all, the Heavenly Alliance is not simply slaughtering cultivators. Instead, they are suppressing all cultivators who maintain the Xuanwang realms, within the eternal immortal wall. Without having to worry about regulating the number of cultivators, perhaps the Heavenly Venerates will find it even more convenient. As for the end, whether the Zon Net's plan to escape from the immortal ruins succeeded. Li Fan tends to believe that it did succeed. Because in his previous life, before he became his true self, after nearly 1,000 years of silence, he clearly felt the vitality begin to revive in the Xuanwang realm. The long-lost sunlight reappeared. Although the living beings in the world were basically extinct, the world itself was rejuvenated. Li Fan doesn't believe that after falling into the immortal ruins, the Xuanwang realm would simply remain silent for 1,000 years and then rejuvenate. If that were the case, then the so-called immortal ruins wouldn't be so daunting to the longevity venerates. For cultivators, the Zon net is naturally unforgivable. But in a way, it saved the Xuanwang realm. It also conveniently cleaned up all the cultivators. Perhaps because of this, when the Zon net replaced heaven, the heavens Tao of this world didn't put up much resistance. After pondering for a long time, Li Fan slowly suppressed his thoughts. Besides these things that are destined to happen, there are also many things that evolved because of the influence of the Zon net's establishment. The cause of everything was because I killed the giant glazed fish and then personally led the heavenly spirit grass incident. The Tianling province war, which shouldn't have happened, had a profound impact on both the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the Five Elders Association. The Five Elders Association vaguely sensed the disappearance of the heavenly venerate, and kept probing in the days that followed. Facing the pressure from the Five Elders Association, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance created a monstrosity like the Tianshuan soul-locking array to protect themselves. Perhaps without the Tianling province war, there would still be a Tianpan province and Jushan province wars. But the different time nodes of the war's occurrence could lead to completely different future trajectories. Countless futures, infinite possibilities. The birth of the Zon net is just one of them. The world after the Zon net's widespread adoption is too dangerous for cultivators. A slight misstep, and they will be captured and suppressed in the eternal immortal wall, making it impossible to cultivate. It seems that in this life, I have to find a way to prevent its birth. Li Fan pondered to himself. However, whether it's the heavenly spirit grass incident or the widespread competition of the soul-locking array, I, with the advantage of foreknowledge, can benefit from them. It would be a shame to give up. Since that's the case. After pondering for a moment, Li Fan instantly had an idea. Mutual restraint and balance, the overall situation can be stabilized. The Xuanwang realm, it's better not to be too chaotic. After reviewing his previous life, the next step is to plan for this life. The goal is clear, to achieve nascent soul realm. Before the Tianling province war, cultivate to golden core perfection. After the great five elements subworld is relocated, go to that piece of void where the five elements subworlds continuously evolve and investigate. If possible, break through based on it. If not, then I can only try to obtain the great five elements subworld from the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. However, there is one thing to do before that. Li Fan flew to the top of the cloud sea, bathing in the morning glow. All distracting thoughts disappeared, and he began practicing the purple sky unwavering intent, a secret technique he obtained from Zhang Qinmo in the fallen immortal realm in his previous life. Li Fan hadn't forgotten that he still had traces left by it from the Yuandao province on his body. Although Li Fan vaguely felt that as he transformed into a thing and continuously reincarnated, this trace might have already disappeared. But it's always better to have an extra layer of insurance. As the secret technique circulated, Li Fan only felt his consciousness soaring upwards. He continued upwards, piercing through the heavens, reaching a sacred and unspeakable place. There were no other beings. Only the vast and pure heaven and earth unwavering intent, filling the space. This powerful and pure energy, like flowing water, cleansed Li Fan's soul. Li Fan gradually immersed himself in it. The psychological shadows caused by it from the Yuandao province and the heavenly doctors slowly dissipated. Even the vicissitudes brought by 3,000 years of transforming into a thing were gradually washed away. Anchored for 3 years, Li Fan retracted his divine ability, feeling clear-minded and relaxed. The purple firmament sect's secret transmission, truly extraordinary. Li Fan nodded in satisfaction. He casually glanced at the truth panel and was instantly surprised. Because he suddenly realized that the charging speed of truth was much faster than before. It originally took nearly 9 years, but now, it will only take a little over 7 years to complete the charging. It seems that practicing the Xuanwang heart refinement mantra in reverse to strengthen the soul is indeed effective. Faster charging means that I can leave Great Zon and go to the Xuanwang realm 8 years after anchoring. It just happens to coincide with the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's once-in-a-decade recruitment exam. Li Fan smiled slightly, pondered for a moment, and adjusted his plan slightly. Then, as usual, he went down the mountain and visited the tomb of Yi Xing. He took out the Tao Transformation Stone, slowly absorbing it while waiting for truth to finish charging. Soon, 8 years after anchoring arrived. Before leaving, Li Fan opened the Truth panel. Name: Li Fan. Cultivation realm: Golden Core mid-stage biological age, 27,599. Psychological age: 1,326 4,200. Void transformation charging progress, 100%. Anchoring charging progress, 0%. Current number of anchors, 3. Current available number of anchors, 1. Bound items: Jade Chapter of 1,000 Mechanisms, Taiyan Boat, Stepping Stone Steel Damaged Blood of 10,000 People, Doubt Transformation Stone Cultivation Techniques, Xuanwang Heart Refinement Mantra, Cloud and Water Dream Technique, Body Transforms into Tao, Mystical Transformation of True Spirits, Crucible of 10,000 Forms, Creation Forge Technique, Sitting Mountain Technique. Divine Abilities: Chaos, Great Five Elements Annihilation Sword, Life and Death Induction, Formless Killing Intent, Binding Insect, Cloud Water Sword, Overturning Heaven Palm. Transforming into a thing for 3,000 years, my psychological age has only increased by a little over 100 years. It seems I don't have to worry about that for now. As for the divine ability, Chaos, Li Fan recalled the terrifying side effects of using it. Even with a 1,000-tempered puppet body, it completely disintegrated, and he shook his head slightly. Although its power is great, it's still too difficult to use for now. He closed the Truth panel. In this life, he wouldn't remove the power of the Sitting Mountain technique, nor would he go to the Great Zon court to plunder wealth. Instead, he transformed into the form of a black-feathered, red-tailed bird and flew rapidly towards the eastern abyss, the immortal extinction greater ray. TL note: you guys won't believe me, but this chapter took 3 hours. See Chapter 422. In the darkness of the void, several realm-splitting whales were chasing each other, playing playfully. If you looked closely, you could see that one of them had a black-feathered, red-tailed bird standing on its back. The bird was strolling leisurely on the vast fish, seemingly at ease. The realm-splitting whale was completely oblivious to its presence. This black-feathered, red-tailed bird was, of course, Li Fan. He effortlessly passed through the immortal extinction greater ray and, seeing the group of realm-splitting whales, had a sudden whim. He wanted to test the actual deceptive effect of the Crucible of 10,000 Forms. This was how this scene came to be. Realm-splitting whales are extremely sensitive to external energy. Even mortals can be tracked by them for thousands of miles, Li Fan said to himself. I am so close, yet they show no reaction. It seems they see me as no different from a real bird. Li Fan was very satisfied with the test results. He spread his wings and flew swiftly away from the realm-splitting whales, heading towards the entrance to the Xuanwang realm at the bottom of the abyss. If Great Zon truly escaped the Xuanwang realm thanks to the efforts of the realm-splitting whales, would it be directly captured by the immortal ruins? Just like the Medicine King's true divine cauldron. Who was behind these realm-splitting whales back then? It shouldn't be the 10 great immortal sects. They know of the existence of the immortal ruins. Letting the realm-splitting whales dig out small worlds would be digging their own graves. The light of the cultivation world was not far ahead. Looking back at the realm-splitting whales, which seemed to be working tirelessly, a thought suddenly flashed in Li Fan's mind. It was just a fleeting thought, and his figure did not pause for a moment. The next moment, Li Fan reappeared above the vast ocean. The sky and sea were one, and the salty wind blew gently. Li Fan took a deep breath and sighed. The blue sky is still the most beautiful. After spending hundreds of years in the oppressive world under the Zon net, Li Fan, returning to his original self, finally understood the preciousness of this freedom. Instead of joining the 10,000 Immortals Alliance first, Li Fan checked his direction and flew towards the border between the Kongyun Sea and Shilin Province. His destination was the Tianji sect ruins in the White Stone subworld. This was where Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi had found the Jade Chapter of 1,000 Mechanisms, in the past. In his previous life, Xiao Heng, with the help of Lingu Chong, had unearthed several other cultivation techniques from the ruins, besides the Jade Chapter. These included the secret technique, one hand covers the sky. Li Fan naturally couldn't miss out on this. Although he was just a common bird on the outside, Li Fan's flying speed was not slow at all. 20 days later, Li Fan arrived outside the 100-stone subworld. The so-called 100-stone subworld was a vast underground cave located on the outskirts of Shilin Province. Inside the cave, countless paths branched out and intertwined. Every so often, there would be a sudden opening, forming a spacious underground hall. The halls were filled with jagged rocks, growing wildly from the top down and from the walls outward. They were of various shapes, resembling humans and beasts, making people feel uneasy. Many cultivators had lost their way inside and never returned. No one knew just how large this 100-stone subworld was. As one of the most dangerous places in Shilan province, even those who knew of the secrets that might be hidden here were reluctant to come and explore. Li Fan continued to venture deeper into the cave, but he didn't encounter a single person. The deeper he went, the more complex the paths became. Often, at a single intersection, there were as many as 7 or 8 branches. Furthermore, not only was his divine sense affected to some degree, but the cave itself also changed occasionally. The paths that were there when he arrived would mysteriously disappear when he wanted to return. And the geology of the cave was incredibly hard. It was impossible to carve out a path by force. This was why the 100-stone subworld was so dangerous. According to Lingu Chong, this 100-stone subworld is likely the remains of the ancient beast, the primordial clam. After its death, Li Fan recalled what he had heard from Han Wuyu. The primordial clam lived deep underground, feeding on the earth's veins. It was a notorious destroyer of terrain, capable of hollowing out the entire underground of a province. However, there is always a counter to every creature. Inside its body, a type of stone spirit insect often coexisted. The primordial clam was greedy by nature. It devoured the earth's veins without restraint, possibly even overeating itself to death. In most cases, it wouldn't have time to digest and absorb the earth's vein energy within its body. As a result, it would condense into large masses of earth vein stone within its body. These stone spirit insects feed on the earth vein stones. They help the primordial clam relieve the pressure of digestion, while they themselves never have to worry about food. A perfect symbiotic relationship. Perhaps the complex tunnels in this 100-stone subworld were dug out by these stone spirit insects. Li Fan flew along, carefully searching for stone spirit insects in the darkness. Half a day later, "It's you." Li Fan revealed his true form, his 5 elements annihilation sword silently unsheathed. A deep hole appeared on the stone wall of the tunnel. A bluish-gray figure flashed past, about to escape into the depths of the wall. Bind insect. Li Fan suddenly activated his divine ability, capturing it. A plump, bluish-gray giant insect, the size of a baby, instantly appeared in front of Li Fan. It was unable to move, and it let out a series of rapid chirps. Li Fan lightly tapped it, producing a dull sound. The stone spirit insect's entire body trembled, and it immediately became obedient under Li Fan's warning. Li Fan infused his spiritual energy into its body and closed his eyes to sense the stone spirit insect's structure. Although it could devour earth vein stones, its physiological structure was even less complex than the ordinary bird Li Fan had transformed into before. Not long after, Li Fan released the restraint. The next moment, he was enveloped in golden light and transformed into the form of a stone spirit insect. The original fat insect fell to the ground with a thud. It didn't even care about its new companion, Li Fan, and hurriedly burrowed into the ground to escape. The hole it had dug out didn't last long. Under Li Fan's gaze, it slowly healed up. This place is truly strange. The primordial clam is dead but not gone. Without a special method, exploring it would be quite troublesome. But now, Li Fan shook his insect body and plunged into the stone wall. He felt as if these incredibly hard rocks had turned into crunchy delicacies. Li Fan effortlessly carved out a path. With the general location of the Tianji sect ruins in mind, Li Fan proceeded straight towards it. 7 days later, an underground chamber sealed on all sides. A rumbling sound faintly emanated from the stone walls. Soon, Li Fan, in the form of a stone spirit insect, violently emerged from the wall. He crashed to the ground with a bang. He lay on his back, motionless. Only when the earth vein stones in his body were completely digested into energy did Li Fan return to his human form. "I actually overate." Li Fan shook his head, speechless to himself. Chapter 423. Li Fan carefully examined the hollow space. Above, numerous buildings seemed to grow from the top of the stone cave, hanging upside down in midair. Li Fan also saw stone statues that resembled cultivators. Their feet were fused with the buildings, also hanging upside down, their desperate and helpless hands reaching out as if seeking rescue. But their bodies were eternally frozen at this moment, their faces filled with terror. This should be a mountain peak of the TNG sect, coincidentally swallowed by this primordial clam. Judging by the appearance, it seems they were petrified as a whole before being swallowed. Li Fan raised his guard, leaping to the top of the hollow. Ignoring the petrified cultivators, he traversed the ruins, heading straight for the most prominent stone tower. The sky-gazing tower, the crucial location for the TNG sect to peer into the secrets of heaven. Standing before the stone tower, Li Fan discovered that even after thousands of years, a faint glimmer still emanated from its surface. The restrictions are still present, but they are merely a facade. As if unimpeded, Li Fan entered the interior of the sky-gazing tower. The moment he stepped inside, Li Fan's expression changed. He felt a malevolent gaze directed towards him. Following the direction of the gaze, Li Fan saw a cultivator standing ahead, his hair disheveled. His face was contorted, one of his eyeballs bulging as if about to pop out, fixedly staring at Li Fan. The cultivator's lower body was also petrified like the other TNG sect disciples, turned into stone. However, his upper body seemed to be in the midst of the petrification process, presenting a grotesque mixture of flesh and stone. Dead or alive, Li Fan didn't dare to delay, immediately unleashing a 5 elements annihilation sword. Bang! The black light sword struck the cultivator's body. After piercing through him, the cultivator's body shattered into pieces, scattered across the floor. Only the half-petrified eyeball remained floating in the air, its pupil still locked onto Li Fan. Li Fan slowly approached, constantly changing his position. He discovered that the eyeball seemed to sense his presence, always keeping him in its sights. Standing before the petrified eyeball, he waited for a while, but it didn't react further. Li Fan took it into his hand and examined it closely. It's not a real eyeball, but something this deceased cultivator implanted into his body before his death. Strange, I don't remember Xiao Heng's group having this. Did they not discover it? Or did Ling Guchang hide it? Li Fan played with it for a while, but found no use for the eyeball. He temporarily placed it in his bosom and continued exploring the sky-gazing tower. The sky-gazing tower had a total of 9 levels. From the 2nd to the 5th levels, jade slips and magical artifacts were scattered everywhere. However, most of them were damaged. Li Fan found a storage ring among them, happily collecting it into his own after ensuring its intactness. The grand subtle heavenly numbers, the 9 heavens 1 chi art, the decree of heavenly will descending, the 1,000 mechanisms mystical records. There were cultivation techniques and research works on the heavenly mechanisms. In the end, Li Fan collected 26 cultivation techniques and 48 books. Among them, 17 were golden core stage techniques, and 9 were nascent soul stage techniques. Truly a windfall, but I wonder how many are unique copies. However, only 2 of these techniques show signs of being cultivated. It seems the 10,000 Immortals Alliance doesn't have a high proportion of cultivation techniques. Li Fan suppressed his joy and continued upwards. From the 6th to the 8th levels, strange objects were displayed. For example, a lotus flower with a human face growing on each petal. An unknown fruit resembling a dragon. A rectangular stone with natural patterns. These strange objects seem to have been enveloped in some special power. But with the passage of time, this power had completely dissipated. Now they just looked strange. These should be the objects the TNG sect used to sense the secrets of heaven, Li Fan mused. The TNG sect believed that the chi of heaven and earth interacted and manifested in the world. Those things that defied common sense were the result of the intense interaction of the chi of heaven and earth. By using these strange objects, one could deeply comprehend the chi of heaven and earth. The same principle as my use of the Sea of Tranquility Pearl to sense heaven and earth, Li Fan collected all these things, regardless of their usefulness. Finally, he reached the 9th level of the sky-gazing tower. Opening it, he found it was empty, with nothing inside. Just as Xiao Heng said, Li Fan wasn't disappointed, as he had expected this. Li Fan searched carefully again, but still found nothing of value. It seemed like he was just wishful thinking. After thinking for a moment, Li Fan simply activated the 5 elements annihilation sword, directly cutting off the 9th level of the stone tower. The black light of annihilation, like a devastating force, shattered the remaining thousands of years of restrictions on the sky-gazing tower. Then, with a loud roar, the topmost level of the sky-gazing tower was collected into Li Fan's storage ring. Better to have it than not. Li Fan nodded in satisfaction. Afterward, he thoroughly scoured the ruins inside and out. He ultimately found 4 more cultivation techniques in several separate subworlds. 3 were golden core techniques, and 1 was a nascent soul technique. This nascent soul technique was precisely the jade chapter of 1,000 mechanisms. This subworld on the edge of the ruins must have been accidentally revealed decades later, which is how Ko Hong and his brother discovered it. But these two brothers were truly unlucky. If they had just searched a little more carefully, they would have discovered the true ruins of the TNG sect not far away. As a result, Ko Hong got greedy upon seeing the nascent soul technique and missed out on the treasure trove. Understanding the reasons behind it, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a sense of absurdity. With his bountiful harvest, Li Fan no longer lingered. He transformed back into the stone spirit worm, carving a passage from the resealed stone wall. Leaving the 100-stone subworld, he headed towards the Kong Yun Sea. Glass Island. He Zhenghao was troubled, confused, and anxious. Go or not? He Zhenghao frowned, letting out a long sigh. He didn't know why, but while cultivating the sitting mountain technique, a while ago, he suddenly felt a connection. For some reason, another person cultivating the sitting mountain technique had appeared in the world. The sitting mountain technique was already incredibly slow to cultivate, and now someone else was cultivating it alongside him. How could this be? It was basically impossible to cultivate. This sudden change in his primary cultivation technique left He Zhenghao unsure of what to do. He had discovered the sitting mountain technique while exploring a subworld in his youth, and had never revealed it to anyone. How did the other party know about it? This matter was strange, and He Zhenghao, who was never very bold, didn't dare to approach the other party to investigate, fearing for his safety. He could only hide in the protective array of the island, constantly worrying. At this moment, who are you, you scoundrel? How dare you steal my sect's cultivation technique? Get out here! A thunderous voice echoed through the sky above Glass Island, reverberating endlessly. He Zhenghao was stunned for a moment, about to go out to check the situation. Then, he immediately reacted. Is this the other party coming to find me? Sensing the other party's powerful aura, He Zhenghao's face turned pale. Golden Core Stage, Chapter 424, How could this be? Not only are we practicing the same cultivation technique, but his cultivation is actually higher than mine. He Zhenghao was speechless, instantly falling into a deep state of self-doubt about his life. This is a disaster. In an instant, countless thoughts flooded He Zhenghao's mind. But in the end, he still decided to temporarily seek refuge on the 10,000 Immortals Island. Just as he was about to activate the teleportation formation. I know you're hiding inside, why don't you come out and see me? The other party's angry roar rang out again, his voice like thunder. The entire Glass Island seemed to tremble under the sound of his wrath. He Zhenghao's face twitched. He dared not speak, but hastily activated the teleportation formation. Who would have thought that the other party would have discovered his actions as if he had foreseen them? Want to escape? Humph! A ripple instantly enveloped the airspace above Glass Island. He Zhenghao was horrified to discover that the teleportation formation on Glass Island had lost connection with 10,000 Immortals Island. Spatial lockdown. Cold sweat instantly dripped from his forehead. But in a flash, He Zhenghao realized. No, it's just that I don't know what method was used to temporarily affect the connection of the teleportation formation nodes. Just as he was secretly letting out a sigh of relief, he suddenly discovered that the cultivator who had suddenly appeared had transformed into a streak of light, rushing straight towards the protective formation of the island below. He Zhenghao's heart surged with joy. So he's just a reckless brute. My mountain and star formation isn't something to be trifled with, even if he's at the Golden Core stage. Just as he was thinking this, something that made his jaw drop happened. The other party, as if treating the formation as nothing, flew straight in. His flight path seemed random, yet it always followed the weakest points of the formation's defenses. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. In a blink of an eye, before He Zhenghao even had time to react, he landed in front of him. The man coldly stared at him, his eyes filled with killing intent. You're the little brat who stole my sect's cultivation technique. He Zhenghao's mind went blank. He didn't have time to think about why the other party could so easily break through his proud mountain and star formation. A terrifying killing intent, as tangible as substance, enveloped him. He Zhenghao's heart beat wildly against his will. Misunderstanding. It's definitely a misunderstanding. Fellow Taoist, please don't act rashly. Faced with the threat of death, He Zhenghao shouted repeatedly. Fellow Taoist. The other party's fierceness intensified. A mere foundation establishment cultivator, how dare you address a golden core cultivator as fellow Taoist? Are cultivators these days so lacking in manners? An oppressive aura, far stronger than that of ordinary golden core cultivators, suddenly emanated from him. He Zhenghao instantly felt as if a mountain was pressing down on his shoulders. His knees buckled, and he almost collapsed to his knees. He Zhenghao's heart was filled with grievance. Not to mention golden core cultivators, even nascent soul cultivators, He Zhenghao would still address them as fellow Taoist. However, with the enemy before him, for the sake of his own life, He Zhenghao had no choice but to temporarily submit to the other party's power. Forcing out a strained smile, He Zhenghao said with some difficulty, "Misunderstanding, it's really a misunderstanding. Senior, let's talk things through." The other party scanned the surroundings with a cold gaze, temporarily withdrawing his pressure. "I ask, you answer. If you deceive me, die." He Zhenghao's heart skipped a beat when he heard the other party's words. He nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking at rice, indicating that he understood. "How did you obtain your sitting mountain technique?" the other party asked. "It was obtained by this junior when I was young, during an expedition to a certain subworld." "It was definitely not." He Zhenghao hadn't finished speaking when he heard the other party ask again. "Subworld, where is it located? Why would there be my sect's inheritance there?" He Zhenghao immediately described the location and internal structure of the subworld he had encountered back then. The other party's eyes narrowed slightly, and he remained silent for a moment. Then, he actually mentioned some details about the inside of the subworld, asking He Zhenghao if it was true or not. He Zhenghao was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. Noticing that the other party's killing intent was gradually subsiding, He Zhenghao couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Seeing that the other party seemed to be lost in thought, he mustered his courage and asked, "From my observation of Senior's speech and manner, they are different from ordinary people. Could it be that Senior has just awakened from a slumber?" It was no wonder He Zhenghao would make such a guess. In this era, who would still mention anything about sects? Moreover, there had been cases of ancient cultivators who had slumbered for thousands of years waking up. He Zhenghao didn't find it particularly strange. He just felt that he was incredibly unlucky. The other party didn't directly admit it, but his expression became somewhat solemn. "I would like to ask you, what has happened in all these years? My cultivation technique actually produced a mysterious connection. Heaven and earth seem to have become different." He Zhenghao was even more convinced of his guess. He immediately described to him in detail everything that had happened in the Xuanwang realm after the Heavenly Venerate's teachings and the arrival of the Great Calamity, including the current state of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. The other party's expression changed repeatedly as he listened. And through He Zhenghao's constant probing, he finally gradually learned the other party's identity. His name was Li Fan, and he was an ancient cultivator of the TNG sect. He had fallen into a slumber due to an accident. When he woke up, not only had his cultivation regressed to the golden core stage, but he also felt a mysterious connection in his heart. Without knowing the reason, Li Fan followed the connection to Glass Island. And when he discovered that He Zhenghao, who was also practicing the sitting mountain technique, wasn't a disciple of the TNG sect, he had the questioning scene that had just taken place. "How did Senior recognize that I'm not a disciple of the TNG sect?" Although He Zhenghao lamented his misfortune in his heart, he still had doubts. Li Fan let out a sneer. "After 1,000 years, have cultivators become so ignorant? Your question is like asking why cultivators can tell at a glance that a beast isn't human. We cultivators of the TNG sect emphasize the unity of heaven and man, and our sect's cultivation techniques are all inseparable from the flow of qi. Naturally, I have secret techniques to discern." He Zhenghao's old face turned slightly red as he listened to the other party's dismissive tone. Just as he was about to say something else, he saw Li Fan suddenly fix his gaze on him. "Senior, you," He Zhenghao couldn't help but feel a little nervous. "How long have you been practicing the sitting mountain technique?" Li Fan asked. He Zhenghao was slightly taken aback. "Over 100 years. The sitting mountain technique is such a divine cultivation technique, how come you're only at the foundation establishment stage after cultivating for so long?" Li Fan looked at He Zhenghao with suspicion. "Could it be that you've also fallen in cultivation due to an injury?" Upon hearing this, He Zhenghao's face instantly turned crimson. "Senior doesn't know this sitting mountain technique." He was about to explain himself, but then he suddenly remembered that this person was the ancestor of the sitting mountain technique. For a moment, he was speechless. He stammered and stood there dumbfounded. However, it was Li Fan who saved him. As if he had remembered something, he suddenly realized. That's right, you can't sense the heavenly mechanism. No wonder your cultivation is so slow. Just relying on sitting mountain without mountain ascension. Difficult, difficult, difficult. To be continued. Chapter 425. Sitting mountain without mountain ascension. He Zhenghao's eyes lit up. He seemed to have gleaned some incredible information from Li Fan, this senior. He was eager for Li Fan to elaborate, but the latter suddenly clammed up. This made He Zhenghao anxious. He hesitated several times before speaking. What's the matter? We're both cultivating the same technique now. It's good enough that we're not drawing swords at each other. You still want me to guide you? Li Fan sneered. He Zhenghao could see that this senior was just a little intimidating in appearance. He wasn't truly a villain. He quickly said, Senior, your eyes are like torches, you've seen through me. The sitting mountain technique, Zuo Shan Wei, is a divine technique, but my cultivation is too slow. I've already thought about changing techniques. Please rest assured, Senior. I will absolutely not compete with you for the technique. Hearing He Zhenghao's statement, Li Fan's expression softened slightly. You're a smart kid. It saves me from having to commit more bloodshed. He Zhenghao tentatively asked, however, I've cultivated the sitting mountain technique for over 100 years, pouring my heart and soul into it. I know I might have been practicing it wrong, but I don't know the correct way to cultivate it. It's truly frustrating. I hope Senior can enlighten me. He Zhenghao said earnestly. Li Fan carefully scrutinized him. He Zhenghao felt the same nervousness he had as Immortal when he first encountered a cultivator. Forget it. We were originally separated by thousands of years, but we can cultivate the same technique. It's truly a deep connection. The heavenly secrets are unpredictable. Perhaps it was fate that I met you after I woke up. After a long silence, Li Fan sighed lightly. The subworld where you obtained the technique is also. Li Fan shook his head, abruptly stopping. He said seriously. Since you're also cultivating the sitting mountain technique, you naturally know that the essence of the technique lies in the 4 words, Zuo Shang Qi Sheng, sit and enjoy the benefits. He Zhenghao nodded repeatedly. Li Fan continued, but the changes in the world happen over thousands of years. Just relying on sitting mountain cultivation is too slow. In truth, it might not even be considered a third-rate technique. He Zhenghao agreed even more. Therefore, if you want to cultivate the sitting mountain technique quickly, you have to rely on sitting immortal. Li Fan said emphatically. Help cultivators who are in dire straits. Once their luck turns around and they soar to great heights, their cultivation will advance rapidly. We will naturally benefit greatly. Furthermore, the feedback from one person may be small, but with a wide net, little by little, it will accumulate and become a towering structure. How can cultivation be slow? However, Li Fan's voice changed. The crux lies here. Although there are many cultivators in the world, ultimately only a small percentage can cultivate from the Qi refinement stage, foundation establishment stage, all the way to the golden core stage and nascent soul stage. If you lack special methods and blindly invest, not only will it be inefficient, but more often than not, it will be a waste of effort. I think this is the reason why your cultivation has been so slow. He Zhenghao nodded eagerly. Therefore, the key lies in finding the right people. So-called harmony between heaven and man, Tian Ren Jiao Gan. If there is extraordinary talent, heaven and earth will naturally respond with a heavenly secret TNG. My TNG sect TNG Zong has a secret technique that can locate and pinpoint those with extraordinary talents in this world based on the changes in heavenly secret within heaven and earth. If we bestow favors on them before they grow up. Li Fan stopped talking, but He Zhenghao was filled with excitement. In this way, the cultivation of the sitting mountain technique will definitely be 100, 1,000 times faster. Amazing, amazing. He was lost in his own beautiful fantasies. It was Li Fan's cold snort that brought him back to reality. Alright, I've given you the answer you want. When are you going to change techniques? Anyway, with the transmutation chapter of the Supreme Primordial True Scripture, Tai Sheng Yuan Shi Zhen Jing, it won't affect you much. Li Fan questioned. He Zhenghao's expression faltered slightly, and he said awkwardly, Junior wants to change to a technique that requires a lot of contribution points. My resources are a bit tight right now. I'm afraid. Li Fan's face suddenly darkened. Kid, are you trying to play me? If that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Seeing a black light flash in Li Fan's eyes, He Zhenghao's hair stood on end. He felt like he was being targeted by an ancient beast, his heart frantically warning him. He Zhenghao quickly said with a bitter face, It's true. It's true. The technique Junior wants is called the Mountain River Hidden Dragon Technique, Shan Yin Long Gong. It requires a total of 250,000 contribution points to redeem. He spoke extremely quickly, spilling all his secrets in one breath. Oh, the black light in Li Fan's eyes didn't dissipate. So how many contribution points have you accumulated now? He Zhenghao hesitated. I usually keep about 1,000 contribution points for emergencies. The rest are invested in various channels. He Zhenghao took out a Tianshuan mirror, glanced at it, and his expression changed. All in all, I should have 15 or 1,600,000. He carefully glanced at Li Fan. To his surprise, Li Fan didn't get angry. He simply nodded and said, you're still short 100,000 contribution points. Give you a month, that should be enough, right? He flicked his finger. He Zhenghao felt a cold sensation enter his body. When he tried to sense it again, he couldn't detect it. Li Fan said coldly, this is the TNG sect's secret technique. Soul-locking binding, Suo Ling Fu, no one can undo it except the person who cast the spell. Once the time is up, if the soul-locking binding isn't removed, you will only be reduced to ashes, death and destruction. He Zhenghao's face turned pale at these words. Kid, remember, within a month, change techniques on your own. Otherwise. Li Fan glanced at He Zhenghao and was about to flee. He Zhenghao couldn't help but lament, Senior, you're being too unreasonable. 150,000 into 250,000 in a month. How is that possible? You might as well kill. Li Fan suddenly returned and landed in front of He Zhenghao. He Zhenghao stopped abruptly. You little brat, why are you so noisy? I've already been merciful by giving you so much time. You can't turn 150,000 into 250,000 in a month. Then what are you investing in? Li Fan said impatiently. He Zhenghao mumbled, looking like he was angry but didn't dare to say anything. Li Fan suddenly became furious. What kind of expression is that? He Zhenghao had no choice but to bite the bullet and say. It's not that Junior is shirking responsibility, it's just. Li Fan waved his hand, you kid are just a piece of useless mud. Such a simple matter, it's as if you're being asked to give your life. If I were to do it, I wouldn't need a month. I could do it in 7 or 8 days. The expression on He Zhenghao's face spoke volumes. Li Fan sneered, what? You don't believe me, how about we make a bet? He Zhenghao was unusually tough this time, bet on it. But Senior can't go back on your word if you lose. Chapter 426. Go back on my word. What a joke. I, Li Fan, never break my promises. Li Fan said with an air of pride. Then it's settled. If I lose, I will voluntarily give up practicing the sitting mountain technique. And if you lose? Li Fan looked at He Zhenghao coldly. I won't make things difficult for you. Besides immediately changing your cultivation technique, you'll have to give me half of your assets. He Zhenghao's face changed drastically. This. Senior, how can you gamble like that? Li Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent, scaring He Zhenghao, who immediately shut his mouth. Does the 10,000 Immortals Alliance have something like a legal contract nowadays? Li Fan casually asked. We can't just rely on verbal agreements, can we? What do you think? How could He Zhenghao dare to disagree? He had no choice but to bite the bullet and purchase a commercial contract from the Tianshuan mirror. Li Fan took the contract, pretending to be seeing it for the first time, and carefully studied it, showing a thoughtful expression. Then he wrote down the agreed terms on it and handed the contract to He Zhenghao. He Zhenghao looked at the extremely harsh terms on the contract and couldn't help but hesitate. 7 or 8 days, from 150,000 into 250,000. This is almost impossible to achieve. My chances of winning are pretty good. Now I'm at the mercy of others. I might as well gamble. He Zhenghao's expression kept changing, but in the end, he gritted his teeth and signed his name on the commercial contract. 2 golden lights entered Li Fan and He Zhenghao's bodies respectively. The contract was sealed. Li Fan then said, all right, kid. Quickly hand over the 150,000. He Zhenghao was confused. What 150,000? Li Fan glared at He Zhenghao and said matter-of-factly, of course it's your 150,000 contribution points. I just woke up, I'm not a member of your 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Where am I going to find that many contribution points to complete the bet? Naturally, you'll have to borrow my contribution points for use. He Zhenghao was stunned at first, then completely panicked. You see, if he lost the bet, he would only lose half at most. But if his investment failed, it was possible to lose everything. This was a lesson He Zhenghao had learned through blood and tears over the years. Even in the face of Li Fan's killing intent that was as substantial as the real world, he still resolutely refused. After all, the two parties who signed the commercial contract could not harm each other before the contract was completed. He Zhenghao was sure of this point and refused to take out his life savings no matter what. He thought Li Fan would get angry, but instead, he suddenly put on a beaming smile. "Kid, don't worry. During the bet, I'll stay here with you and won't leave. Moreover, I won't handle your contribution points. I'll just give you investment advice. In the end, you'll still have the final say. If you think it's really inappropriate, I won't force you." Li Fan's words seemed to have a magical power that could bewitch people's minds. He Zhenghao unconsciously let down his guard. According to him, I have the final say, so there's really no risk. Just like that, soon after, He Zhenghao, in a daze, cashed out all his investments that were scattered everywhere. Because it was rushed, he lost a little bit. In total, he actually received 158,000 contribution points. When he came to his senses, it was too late to regret. "Alright, kid, watch my methods." He Zhenghao, who was secretly feeling miserable, only saw Li Fan suddenly burst out with an inexplicable wave of energy, his clothes fluttering without wind. As for him, his eyes were slightly closed, his fingers continuously pinching, as if he was sensing something. He Zhenghao could only stand aside, not daring to disturb him. Li Fan calculated for 3 whole days. His complexion gradually turned pale, but his aura kept strengthening with the passage of time. Although He Zhenghao didn't understand much, he knew that the other party must be at a critical juncture. He didn't dare to breathe loudly and stared intently at Li Fan. Hiss! Li Fan suddenly let out a low cry and pointed to the sky. He Zhenghao saw a purple energy, as if breaking through the formation, flying towards the sky. What kind of divine ability is this? He was secretly shocked in his heart. After a moment, Li Fan suddenly opened his eyes, a smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Got it." He Zhenghao was stunned. "What did you get?" Li Fan didn't answer but instead asked, "Does the 10,000 Immortals Alliance have something called Obsidian Jade, nowadays?" Obsidian Jade? He Zhenghao frowned and searched in the Tianshuan mirror. After a while, he replied, "There is such a thing. It's a rare refining material. Although it's precious, it doesn't have many uses." "Senior, why are you asking about this?" He Zhenghao felt a little puzzled. 15 contribution points, buy all of it. Li Fan said decisively. He Zhenghao was shocked. "Why?" Li Fan impatiently said, "Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed, just buy it." "How much you can earn with 150,000 contribution points, it all depends on this one investment." He Zhenghao finally realized and said in disbelief, "Is this your investment strategy, senior?" Li Fan looked down at him with disdain and sneered, "Kid, you were still a nobody when I was cultivating the sitting mountain technique. How dare you question me now?" He Zhenghao opened his mouth but ultimately, under Li Fan's intimidation, he dared not retort. However, as a qualified investor, He Zhenghao didn't rush to buy according to Li Fan's instructions. Instead, he silently and carefully checked the information about the Obsidian Jade. The biggest and only use of this stone is to forge the Obsidian boat that can travel freely through the earth veins. The amount in existence and the circulation volume are both relatively small, and the price fluctuation is also relatively small. Although it might not make a profit, it should be unlikely to lose money. I'll listen to him for now. There are still 4 days left before the bet ends. I don't believe this thing can really skyrocket in price in such a short time. Seeing Li Fan impatiently urging him from the side, He Zhenghao thought for a moment and made a decision. "Alright, since senior insists, then I have no choice but to do as you say." The price of Obsidian Jade was 280 contribution points per pound. He Zhenghao bought it while saying to Li Fan, "Senior, you've been asleep for a long time, you must know that the world today is different from ancient times. Our 10,000 Immortals Alliance has the Tianshuan Mirror, a treasure that regulates the market, and prices are generally very stable. There might be minor fluctuations, but senior, you want to get rich by this method." He Zhenghao shook his head slightly. Li Fan snorted coldly, "What are you rambling about? Just wait and see. A mere foundation establishment cultivator, how can you know the divine abilities of my TNG sect?" He Zhenghao was unconvinced but still closed his mouth. He held a grudge in his heart and was waiting to see Li Fan's joke. Until 2 days later, before his very eyes, he witnessed the price of obsidian jade skyrocket. Chapter 427. It only took half a day. Due to the overwhelming demand, the price continued to rise, showing no signs of stopping. How is this possible? He Zhenghao looked at Li Fan in shock again. Li Fan, however, looked solemn and began calculating with his fingers, ignoring him. He Zhenghao could only look back at the Tianquan mirror. The number representing his contribution points was constantly jumping. 301,800. 302,806. His wealth was increasing at a visible rate. He Zhenghao pinched himself hard, making sure he wasn't dreaming. His long-held desire had been so easily fulfilled. He had spent decades accumulating the first 150,000. But the next 150,000 had been earned in less than 5 days. Is this the way of investment that Senior Li Fan practiced? If I could learn this skill. He Zhenghao felt a surge of blood, his excitement overwhelming him. He couldn't wait to brag to his brothers. Just then, Li Fan's voice suddenly rang out, dousing him with cold water. It's time to cash out. Sell everything now. He Zhenghao froze on the spot. But the price is still rising. Li Fan looked at him sideways. He Zhenghao's breath hitched. With a heavy heart, He Zhenghao sold all his obscure jade at 630 contribution points per pound. 333,900 contribution points. I'm rich. He Zhenghao, who had suddenly become wealthy, stared intently at the Tianquan mirror, muttering to himself. He was already fantasizing about how to spend this huge sum. HMPH, I told you it would be easy, you wouldn't believe me. Li Fan's voice came, interrupting He Zhenghao's reverie. Alright, the bet is over, you lost. Go ahead and change your cultivation technique. He Zhenghao snapped out of it. He opened the cultivation technique exchange list, looked at the mountain river hidden dragon technique that he had been longing for, and was about to exchange it, but then he remembered that half of his 30,000 contribution points had been earned through Li Fan's guidance. He cautiously asked, Senior, about those tens of thousands of. Li Fan waved his hand impatiently, it's your investment that yielded a profit. I only gave advice. How could I possibly ask for it from you? Besides, I'm not a member of your 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Moreover, I have the sitting mountain technique, and your contribution points for changing techniques are half mine, so you're also benefiting from me. Li Fan said no more, and He Zhenghao understood. He was overjoyed. He thanked Li Fan repeatedly, then exchanged for the mountain river hidden dragon technique and dispelled his sitting mountain technique cultivation in one go. To show his sincerity, He Zhenghao even voluntarily signed a contract, completely forgetting the contents of the sitting mountain technique. Li Fan was pleased with his performance and patted him on the shoulder. Then he was about to leave. Senior, please wait. Seeing Li Fan already flying in the air, He Zhenghao suddenly came to his senses and hurriedly shouted. What else do you want, you brat? Li Fan paused, his brow furrowed. Senior has been asleep for 1,000 years, just waking up. Why not join our 10,000 Immortals Alliance? Although I'm not qualified to introduce you to Senior, I know many nascent soul cultivators. Li Fan's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was thinking. He Zhenghao's heart leapt with joy, and he continued to persuade, times are different now. If you don't join the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, it's difficult to be a lone cultivator. Besides, I told you about the benefits of joining the alliance. Senior has just seen the convenience of the Tianquan mirror. After He Zhenghao's persistent efforts, Li Fan finally agreed to temporarily join the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. He Zhenghao immediately used a communication talisman to contact them. After busying himself for half a day, He Zhenghao finally relaxed. Please wait a moment, Senior. Once everything is settled with my friend, Senior just needs to go to the 10,000 Immortals Island and go through the verification process. It's such a hassle, Li Fan snorted, looking displeased. He Zhenghao could only smile apologetically. After a moment of silence, He Zhenghao finally couldn't help but ask tentatively, Senior, how did you know the price of obscure jade would skyrocket? I studied it, and there was no indication at all. Perhaps because he was bored from waiting, Li Fan explained to He Zhenghao with a hint of self-satisfaction. The heavenly energy is constantly changing, and ordinary people may not be able to perceive it. But disciples of the ancient Tianji sect can use secret methods to understand it. The way of wealth is the same. He Zhenghao's eyes lit up. There is such a divine ability. It's so easy to double the investment, if it happens a few times a year. Li Fan chuckled, it's not that easy. When cultivators peek at heavenly secrets, heaven is also watching them. Perceiving heavenly secrets doesn't always work. Moreover, you have to face the backlash from the will of heaven, and you can't use it too many times. This time it was so smooth because I haven't used this technique for a long time. Hearing Li Fan's explanation, He Zhenghao couldn't help but feel a little regretful. But soon he was cheered up again. Even if it's only once a year, it's still incredibly amazing. Thinking about 88,000 contribution points he had left after buying the cultivation technique, an idea popped into his mind. However, he was afraid of offending Li Fan, so he hesitated. What are you thinking about? Li Fan seemed to see through him and asked directly. He Zhenghao decided not to hide it anymore and asked cautiously, Senior, after you joined the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, could you spare some time to guide me again? Li Fan looked at him with a smile. He Zhenghao knew his request was a bit excessive, but for the sake of contribution points, he still said with a thick face. Senior's divine ability is truly unbelievable. We have to rack our brains and worry constantly to make a profit. Unlike Senior, who is so carefree, He Zhenghao tried his best to flatter Li Fan. However, until he received the notification to go to 10,000 Immortals Island for the Alliance procedures, Li Fan had no intention of agreeing. Watching Li Fan disappear, He Zhenghao was full of regret inside. However, thinking about the Mountain River Hidden Dragon technique he had exchanged for, and the remaining contribution points, he couldn't help but feel a little proud. It's truly a blessing in disguise. Who would have thought that a deadliest would turn into such a great opportunity for me? He was increasingly proud of himself, and he even forgot about cultivating, instead choosing to brag to his friends who usually discussed investment strategies with him. 10,000 Immortals Path, deep within the administrative hall. In the same space where countless tall red wooden cabinets stood, Li Fan stood on the white jade heart examination platform, listening to the questions of the elderly man with white hair before him. You say you are a cultivator of the ancient Tianji sect, and that you fell into a deep slumber due to an accident. Li Fan nodded. That's right. Chapter 428. It is indeed so. Li Fan's loud voice echoed through the space. The white jade heart examination platform remained quiet, without any response. The old man took another careful look at Li Fan and continued to ask, May I know where you were in slumber and approximately when you awoke? Li Fan showed a displeased expression but still answered in a deep voice, on the outskirts of Kongyan, in an underground cave. As for the time, it should be about 26 days ago. Please wait a moment, the old man said with a smile, then closed his eyes. Li Fan waited patiently on the heart examination platform. After a full day had passed, Li Fan began to show signs of impatience. Is it not done yet, old man? Each generation is worse than the last. Back in the day, our Tianji sect selected disciples without such hassle. He muttered softly. Soon after, the old man opened his eyes. Upon verification, a few days ago, there was indeed a cultivator flying out from the 100-stone cave. However, please be patient, there is one last procedure to complete. The old man smiled apologetically. As he spoke, a simple bronze mirror appeared above Li Fan's head. It emitted a faint green light, enveloping Li Fan. It's here. Li Fan's heart stirred, but he remained unafraid. In the past, with the crucible of 10,000 forms combined with the secret technique, one hand covers the sky, he could deceive the upgraded version of the Tianshuan mirror, the Zon net. Now, with the addition of the 7-aperture exquisite heart, and only a clone of the Tianshuan mirror here for verification, the risk of exposure was minimal. As expected, after a moment, the Tianshuan mirror retracted its green light and disappeared. The old man's expression became even more amiable. Welcome, fellow Taoist, to our 10,000 Immortals Alliance. As time flows and everything changes, many significant events have occurred during your years of slumber. If you have any needs, we can assign a specialist to help you quickly adapt to the present life. Li Fan waved his hand. I appreciate the kind offer. However, before coming here, I had some interactions with He Zhenghao from Glass Island, so I am already quite familiar with the affairs of your alliance. The old man nodded. That's even better. Your identity information has been recorded, and you are now free to move around. Upon hearing this, Li Fan strode away. By the way, remember, you should change your wording. From now on, it's not your alliance, but our 10,000 Immortals Alliance. The old man said with a meaningful smile. Li Fan paused briefly, said nothing, and left directly. He left the central area of the 10,000 Immortals Island and arrived before the Tianquan mirror. Looking at the seemingly ordinary, harmless mirror, Li Fan couldn't help but recall the green web that covered the entire Xuanwang realm in the future. After staring for a long time, Li Fan took a deep breath and walked into the mirror. Ancient cultivator Li Fan, welcome to the future. The familiar mechanical voice of the Tianquan mirror sounded. Then followed a series of introductions and explanations about the Tianquan mirror. Li Fan pretended to listen attentively and tried out each function. After a long time, the voice of the Tianquan mirror disappeared. Li Fan looked at his contribution points balance. 10,000 points. Such generosity is surprising. I remember when I reached the late foundation establishment stage, I only received 1,000 points. Or maybe ancient cultivators get special treatment. Shaking his head, he put this insignificant matter aside. After searching through the technique list in the Tianquan mirror, Li Fan took out a pile of jade slips from his storage ring and requested to sell them. They were the various techniques he had obtained from the 100-stone cave. Fortunately, these techniques were all unique copies. There were originally 20 golden core techniques and 10 nascent soul techniques. Li Fan kept 3 of each for future use. He sold all the rest. The Tianquan mirror offered an average of 13,000 points per golden core technique and 85,000 points per nascent soul technique. Li Fan didn't haggle and sold them directly. In an instant, his account balance became 826,000. Contribution points. Trading techniques is really fast money, much easier than my years of teaching at Mingyu Palace. Demand is truly high. Li Fan couldn't help but sigh. With more than 800,000 contribution points, it's enough to last for a while. But it's still not enough. Currently, Li Fan was in the mid-golden core stage. In 8 years, or 16 years as the anchor point, the 5 elements great subworld would be discovered and then moved to the core area of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. In 36 years as the anchor point, the void of Tianling continent would reappear, drawing the attention of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. This meant Li Fan only had 20 years. Time was tight, and Li Fan had to reach the peak of the golden core stage within 8 years. Only then would he be qualified to plot for the void of Tianling continent. 8 years to advance from mid-golden core to peak golden core. Given Li Fan's cultivation aptitude, it was challenging. So, he naturally had to use some methods. Li Fan looked at his reflection in the mirror. It wasn't his original 20-year-old appearance. Instead, he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. This was achieved through the mystical transformation of True Spirit's technique. Disguising oneself and not showing the true face gives a unique sense of security in this perilous Xuanwang realm. If things go wrong, it's just a matter of changing identities. Li Fan smiled faintly and purchased the materials needed for refining a clone from the Tianquan mirror. Then, through the teleportation array, he arrived at Tian Island. After using the formless killing intent to lock onto Zhou Qingong, the spy of the 5 Elders Association, who guarded Tian Island. Pretending to leave Tian Island, he didn't go far but lurked underwater. After waiting for more than a month, he finally got the chance when Zhou Qingong went out to sea alone. Following him to a deserted sea area, he suddenly activated the binding insect divine power and captured him. Taking him to the seabed, he dug out a secret chamber as usual. Without any nonsense, he lightly tapped his finger, activating the cloud water dream technique. Zhou Qingong immediately fell asleep. With the experience of the previous life, Li Fan knew that Zhou Qingong's soul contained a special restriction from the 5 Elders Association. If he forced a soul search, it would trigger the restriction, causing his soul to scatter. So, in this life, Li Fan used a different method, constructing a false dream world to explore his innermost secrets. Gradually, a smile appeared at the corner of Zhou Qingong's mouth. In the dream, he had been lurking in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance for hundreds of years. Starting from the grassroots, when he broke through to the nascent soul stage, he finally became the master of 10,000 Immortals Island. With his inside help, the 5 Elders Association launched a massive attack, capturing the entire Kongyan Sea in just a few days. And Zhou Qingong finally returned home with great merit and pride. Land of gentlemen. Looking at Zhou Qingong, who was immersed in the illusion, Li Fan mused thoughtfully. Chapter 429. According to Zhou Qingong's memory, under the rule of the 5 Elders Association, there were 5 celestial realms, in total, each governed by different longevity immortals. Each celestial realm had starkly different characteristics from the others. His homeland was called the Land of Gentlemen. It got its name because no one within could tell a lie. Of course, that was what the people within the Land of Gentlemen called themselves. Cultivators from other parts of the Five Elders Association preferred to call it the Land of Truth. Regardless of what it was called, it didn't affect its wonderful essence. There, people were always honest with each other, always showing their truest selves. Although some killing was inevitable from time to time, compared to the outside world filled with lies, Zhou Qing'an loved his homeland deeply. To the north of the Land of Truth was the dream destination of countless cultivators, the Land of Carefree Bliss. As for the other three realms, Zhou Qing'an was still young when he was chosen for spy training, so he didn't get to know about them. As the dream was about to shatter, Li Fan replayed the dream sequence again. To ensure the accuracy of the information obtained, he repeated this process 3 times. Taking some biological materials from Zhou Qing'an, Li Fan began to use them as a template to create a doppelganger. Several days later, a body identical to Zhou Qing'an's appeared. Li Fan nodded slightly, then followed the same method, activating the mystical transformation of true spirits to change himself into Zhou Qing'an's appearance as well. A rather eerie scene appeared in this small underwater secret chamber. 3 bodies with completely identical appearances, but with different expressions. Marvelous, marvelous, Li Fan nodded with satisfaction. Looking at the still unconscious Zhou Qing'an with a smile on his face, a strange light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. I won't kill you in this life, to avoid leaving any traces. Being forever immersed in an illusory dream might not be a bad thing for you. Using materials at hand, Li Fan crafted a stone coffin for Zhou Qing'an. After placing him inside, he scattered a pile of spirit stones to maintain his vitality. Li Fan then set up an array with Cloud Water Dream Illusion as its core. It could maintain an illusory realm for at least 20 years. He then sealed the stone coffin with huge rocks and buried it deep in the seabed. This way, no one in the world except me should discover that you've disappeared. After dealing with all traces, Li Fan's gaze seemed to penetrate the seabed, looking at Zhou Qing'an sleeping in the illusory dream, and said with satisfaction. His actions were inspired by the eternal immortal wall. From the future, Zon Net, timeline. When cultivators in the Xuanwang realm die, the heaven and earth respond, and strange phenomena appear in the sky. Li Fan hadn't yet mastered a method to prevent these phenomena from occurring. And now, he couldn't let others discover that the real Zhou Qing'an was already dead. Using this method was the most suitable solution. After doing all this, the doppelganger returned to Tian Island to continue as the guardian of the Tian Island. The true body then headed towards the meeting point with the superior, as remembered in Zhou Qing'an's memory. Zhou Qing'an actually knew very little about his superior. The contact had always been mostly one way. And after each meeting, the location for the next meeting would change. Li Fan arrived at an uninhabited island and searched it, indeed finding an ordinary-looking stone. Only in specific positions were there a few inconspicuous small holes. These small holes represented coordinates from the Kangyan Sea. Li Fan calculated the location for this meeting based on the coordinates. After crushing the stone, he flew directly towards that location. A day later, in a ruin at the bottom of the sea, Li Fan found his target. A seemingly ordinary broken stone. Li Fan placed both hands on it, simultaneously activating a secret technique, his palms emitting a yellow light. In an instant, the same pale yellow glow emerged from the broken stone, quickly scanning over Li Fan's entire body. Verification passed, the light returned to the broken stone. Soon after, the surface of the broken stone became smooth as a mirror. A blurry face image appeared within. What's going on? Didn't I tell you to lay low and not contact me recently? The other party's tone was icy, reprimanding. Li Fan, imitating Zhou Qing'an's tone, said, Boss. I have important intelligence to report this time, that's why I made an exception to contact you. Important intelligence? The other side was clearly skeptical, with an unfriendly tone. Let's hear it. Li Fan lowered his voice and leaned in closer, saying, a fellow cultivator I've befriended, according to him, he can get hold of the test questions for this 10,000 Immortal Alliance's entrance exam. The face first froze, then immediately cursed, another con artist. You believe such an outrageous thing? And you specially report it to me? Zhou Qing'an, oh Zhou Qing'an, have you been in the Cloud Sea for so long that your brain's waterlogged? Li Fan immediately put on a very wronged expression, "Boss, this time it's as true as it can be. I can guarantee it." Seeing Li Fan's earnest appearance, the face also became somewhat hesitant. "How so?" Li Fan said. "This fellow cultivator of mine has connections above. I reported to you before that I had befriended He Zhenghao, the guardian of Luli Island, right? This person, like me, is at the Foundation establishment realm. Not long ago, he was complaining to me about how hard it is to accumulate contribution points, saying he wanted to change his cultivation method but didn't know how long it would take. Who would have thought, after not seeing him for a few days, he had already switched to a nascent soul cultivation method?" Li Fan narrated with an exaggerated tone. "Such an anomaly naturally caught my attention. I went to great lengths to find out." By now, the face had been somewhat drawn in by what Li Fan was saying. Seeing him suddenly withhold information, he immediately scolded, "Hurry up and speak." Li Fan chuckled. "This He Zhenghao is no simple character. On the surface, he seems just an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. But in reality, his background is frighteningly powerful. He has a daughter called He Xingxin. HMPH, in fact, she should be called Heng Xingxin. Boss, have you heard of the Heng family from Tianyu Prefecture of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance? The apple of the Heng family's eye, Heng Ruoshui, who became a nascent soul-weaving master at a young age, is actually He Zhenghao's old flame. Who would believe this if it were said? But it turns out to be true. Previously, it seems that because He Zhenghao's cultivation level was too low, he was forced to cut ties with the Heng family. That's why he was living quite poorly. But recently, it seems that things have taken a turn for the worse." Li Fan paused, looked at the human face, and continued, "He Xingxin has already reached adulthood, and she is very reluctant to let go of her old father when she knows that he is leading such a pitiful life. But if she helps openly and honestly, she is afraid of being discovered by her family. So she had to change the way, quietly delivering the news she overheard to He Zhenghao. It was by relying on his own daughter's help that He Zhenghao was considered to have completely turned over." Li Fan's tone was a bit excited and envious. He knew in advance about the news that obscure jade was going to skyrocket, so he dumped his savings money and purchased it in one full swoop. After the price doubled, it was immediately sold off. In one go, he made over 100,000 contribution degrees. Over 100,000 head, this has to be enough to fund me for how many years? He Zhenghao was also afraid that word would leak out and be unfavorable to his daughter. So he made up a set of nonsense about how he relied on the guidance of the ancient TNG sect cultivators and spread it around. I pooh, truly treating us as fools. Boss, fortunately, I was quick-witted and pestered him by all means and softly, and only then did I get the truth out of his mouth." Li Fan took credit with a confident face. "The source of the leaked test questions for this entry exam is likewise from He Xingxin. Boss, do you think it's reliable?" The silhouette on the broken stone didn't move in anger this time, but remained silent, seemingly looking for something. After a long time, the human face voices came one after another. "Heng Ruoshui does have a daughter, it's just that the identity of the father has always been a mystery. But many years ago, she once returned home in the company of a youth. But not long afterward, the youth was nowhere to be found. Let me see what he looks like. Sure enough, it's He Zhenghao." The human face was shocked. "There's also this. Before obscure jade skyrocketed, there was an unusual trading record. Someone went on a buying spree and later dumped it at a high point. The timing of the grasp is just too good, making it hard to believe that it wasn't known in advance as insider information. The purchaser, it's still He Zhenghao." A loud sound similar to slapping a table with force came from the side of the face. "In that case, the test questions for the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's entrance examination are most likely true." The other party's breathing couldn't help but become rapid. Li Fan couldn't help but nod his head. "That's why I hurriedly came to find you, boss. You should know that the grand entrance examination will be held soon. If we can get the test questions in advance before then, quote, then we'll be able to put nails in more key positions in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance." The face obviously understood the seriousness of the matter and hurriedly asked, "What did he say?" At this time, Li Fan, however, suddenly became somewhat hesitant. Swallowing, he said, "Boss, He Zhenghao's price this time is a bit high." The face angrily rebuked, "Just say it when I tell you to say it. It's just a little bit of spirit stone, how can you compare it to the entry exam questions?" Li Fan stretched out his hand and gestured, he wants this amount. 500,000 contribution degrees. It's not like you can't. The human face hadn't finished his words. Li Fan hastily shook his head and cut him off, no, it's 5 million. The face instantly froze. 5 million, he's crazy, right? His voice trembled a little. But soon, the human face reacted. His face suddenly darkened, and there was a hint of murderous aura in his voice, you've been exposed. Facing an individual, who is still only a foundation establishment cultivator, he definitely wouldn't have offered such an outrageous price. Unless, he already knows that behind you, is an organization. The image on the broken stone flickered, seeming to disappear at any time. The face stared at Li Fan dead in the face, waiting for his answer. Li Fan, on the other hand, was somewhat speechless. Boss, in your mind, am I that unprofessional? I just told him that I have someone behind me as well. Quote, anyone working in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance has connections. You can't get a job there without some personal ties. Don't worry head, even if He Junghao has some speculations, he would never be right to think of me towards the aspect of a spy. In reality, He Junghao is just casting a wide net. He also knows the risks of selling entry test questions, so he's only doing a one-shot deal. He only deals with one party, and limits the number of people who know the questions to no more than 10 who will take the entrance exam. Only after listening to Li Fan's explanation did the human face gradually ease up. The screen became bright and clear again, and the human face carefully analyzed it for a while and said, 50,000 per person, although the cost is a bit high, but it's still acceptable. It's just that the number is huge after all. If the test questions given by this He Junghao are fake. Li Fan was unimpressed and said, He Junghao, he said that there are 7 days for the big entrance exam anyway. He can give us the first day's exam questions for free first. After it's determined to be correct, then we'll make the final deal. Hearing this, man couldn't help but thump his heart. Hey guys, I forgot about the wife. What was she? Nascent Soul Weaving Master came out in the translation. I am not sure what Weaving Master mean. Chapter 430. However, 5 million contribution points was not a small sum. The face did not make a decision immediately. After pondering for a moment, the face said cautiously, this matter still needs to be carefully considered. We will meet again after 7 days. After transmitting a coordinate location to Li Fan, the face quietly disappeared. But in an instant, it reappeared. By the way, no matter what, this person He Junghao has a very high value to be cultivated. You must maintain a good relationship with him. Even if this test question is fake, just because of his relationship with the Heng family of Tianyu province, it is worth spending a fortune. Previously I heard you report that this person is most fascinated by formations. Perhaps we can start from this aspect. The face gave a few more instructions before finally leaving. After glowing yellow, the smooth piece of broken stone shattered inch by inch, falling to the ground. Li Fan stepped forward to examine it, discovering that it had been completely destroyed. Standing on the spot and pondering for a moment, Li Fan, still in the guise of Zhou Qingong, quietly flew away. After flying far enough and ensuring that no one was following or monitoring him along the way, Li Fan transformed back into his original middle-aged appearance in the shadows. The bait has been laid, let's see if the Five Elders Association takes the hook. While flying, Li Fan recalled Zhou Qingong's memories about the Five Elders Association. Land of carefree bliss. Presumably, the one who controls this domain is the longevity Venerable who can make people forget disasters. But what's with that land of truth? The laws of heaven and earth that the longevity Venerable of tranquility has reversed should pretty much cover the entirety of the Xuanwang realm. But, unable to lie, clearly does not affect other areas, only taking effect in specific regions. Sister Zhao's, one heart, seems to be the same. Tranquility and transmission should be one level higher than these two. No wonder the Five Elders Association, with 5 longevity Venerable, still fears transmission. Even if they try to test, they are extremely cautious. Li Fan thought thoughtfully. This connection with the Five Elders Association was not a whim on Li Fan's part. Besides maximizing the use of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's entry exam questions for profit. In the future, to prevent the Tianshuan spirit locking array from purifying towards the Zon Net direction, the balance of the Five Elders Association is also crucial. Having a clone as a spy for the Five Elders Association would make future actions much easier. Next, Li Fan did not return to the 10,000 Immortals Island, but flew towards the southeast sea area of the Kongyan Sea. The secluded small island in the center of the sea area was Li Fan's destination. After half a day, Li Fan saw the complex courtyard on the island from afar. In the courtyard, 5 cultivators were sitting cross-legged. An old man with rosy cheeks and white hair, looking very energetic, was pacing back and forth by the cultivators. He kept muttering about profound and obscure words that were difficult to understand. This Foundation Establishment stage cultivator was the Foundation Establishment Master, whom Li Fan had encountered years ago, including Li Chenfeng, the gatekeeper, and the surname Xiao man who played the role of the actor. These 3 were actually fraudster cultivators who had sneaked over from the small world. Their home, a small world called Empire, was trying to break free from the shackles of the Xuanwang realm with the combined effort of 100,000 realm-splitting whales. And they were tasked with stealing cultivation scriptures from the Xuanwang realm. The goal was to re-establish a cultivation lineage in Empire. After it separated from the Xuanwang realm, it was a pipe dream for ordinary cultivators at the Foundation Establishment stage to accumulate enough contribution points to exchange for Dao integration techniques. So they took a risky approach, accumulating wealth through this deceptive method. Li Fan came to find them, not because he was interested in their meager contribution points, but because he wanted to use the Foundation Establishment Master's fame among numerous Qi refinement cultivators. Li Fan smiled slightly, changing to another unfamiliar face. He landed in front of the Foundation Establishment Master with a confident air. Calm your mind, focus your spirit, and deeply comprehend. The Foundation Establishment Master was swaying his head and reciting words like chanting sutras. Seeing Li Fan descending from the sky, his words stopped abruptly. Golden Core Cultivator. In an instant, countless thoughts flooded the Foundation Establishment Master's mind. But years of lurking had taught him to feign composure. I wonder, Senior. Li Fan, however, waved his hand lightly, first knocking out the other 4 Qi refinement cultivators present. Only the surname Xiao actor and the Foundation Establishment Master remained. Then he said calmly, "It's you, who sneaked over from the small world." His words made the 2 change color. The Foundation Establishment Master was about to argue, but he felt a net suddenly ensnare him. He lost control of his body, unable to even speak. He couldn't even commit suicide. Despair flashed in the Foundation Establishment Master's eyes. Li Fan was about to speak when he suddenly felt something rapidly approaching from behind. He instantly shifted, dodging out of the way. Turning around, Li Fan's eyes narrowed. He saw a figure about 6 feet tall standing there. Judging by his appearance, it was the Qi refinement cultivator Li Chenfeng. However, his appearance had undergone drastic changes. His body had expanded several times, and his body surface had grown horns like a strange beast's shell. 2 pairs of transparent wings behind him flapped rapidly, keeping him suspended in the air. His hands had been replaced by a pair of sharp, dark golden claws. His face seemed to be covered with a strange beast's mask, only revealing 2 eyes. He looked like a combination of man and beast, with a grotesque beauty under the sunlight. Interesting. What is this? The changes before him were beyond Li Fan's expectations. He stared at Li Chenfeng, realizing that this strange beast-like body could actually achieve a certain degree of divine sense shielding. This 6-foot giant, when sensed by divine sense, was only the size of a flying insect. Senior, please spare our lives. Pretend you didn't see us, okay? Li Chenfeng's words rang out, a mixture of 2 voices. But before Li Fan could answer, his massive body vanished from where he stood. He appeared behind Li Fan, his giant claws raised high, about to tear Li Fan's head apart. Li Fan's face slightly changed, because he discovered that the binding insect technique was useless against Li Chenfeng. This was the first time since he learned it from the worm apprentice. However, he remained calm, instantly setting up several formations around him. He flipped his hand, striking out with a palm. The azure giant palm collided with the dark golden giant claw, causing a deafening roar. Li Fan took this opportunity to pull back, and at the same time, a blue water sword illuminated the sky. The cloud water sword pierced through Li Chenfeng's body, splitting him in 2. Countless blood rained down, but Li Fan did not relax his guard. Because Li Chenfeng's body, which had been cut in half, instantly healed its wounds. Then, 1 on each side, they charged towards Li Fan. Just then, the formations Li Fan had set up earlier silently activated. After flying forward for a while, Li Chunfeng seemed to freeze in midair, unable to move forward another step. To be continued. TL note. This chapter was very hard to translate. I made some changes in the chapter 407 related to longevity immortal. Transmission immortal is same as law bestowing immortal. I will list some glossary in this page. Do comment if I got it wrong. This is the cultivation method I got. Qi transformation. Foundation building. Golden core. Nascent soul. Soul transformation. Tao integration to immortal sage. Longevity immortal are called longevity venerable or just venerable. Question mark. So far we know longevity immortal equals greater than transmission, law bestowing venerable, tranquility. Chapter 431. It wasn't that Li Chunfeng had stopped flying. Rather, between him and Li Fan, an uncrossable chasm seemed to appear out of thin air. Though close in proximity, they were worlds apart. No matter how enraged Li Chunfeng became, no matter how rapidly the two pairs of wings on his back flapped, he couldn't escape this invisible cage. The 2E dust array. Although Li Fan had only set up a simplified version, it was more than enough to contain Li Chunfeng, who was only at the Qi refinement stage and relied on his formidable physique combined with his beastly transformation. The binding insect actually failed. Li Fan looked at Li Chunfeng, whose face was contorted with rage, with a look of great interest. Taking a step forward, Li Fan's figure instantly appeared within the array, behind Li Chunfeng. Before Li Chunfeng could react, Li Fan swung his great 5-element annihilation sword, slicing off a large piece of the armor-like keratin from one half of Li Chunfeng's body. Li Chunfeng let out a painful and furious howl, about to retaliate, but Li Fan had already left the 2E dust array, making his attack go astray. Ignoring Li Chunfeng's resentful roar, Li Fan held the keratin he had cut off, examining it carefully. It was still warm to the touch, but the texture was remarkably hard. Li Fan controlled the spiritual energy within his body, condensing a water blade and shooting it at the keratin. Clang! After a crisp sound, the water blade was actually deflected. The keratin only had a faint, shallow mark, and it quickly disappeared as the flesh around the edge of the keratin squirmed. Comparable to the attack of a normal golden core mid-stage cultivator, it can't even break through the defense. Li Fan was somewhat surprised. It's still very active, and it seems to have its own independent consciousness. Perhaps if it's given enough nutrition and time, it could grow into another complete body. He had never seen anything like it before. This time, Li Fan's gaze towards Li Chunfeng and the others was completely different. The small world that can control 100,000 realm-breaking whales, it's not going to be that simple. Now, let me see how far your empire has developed. Li Fan's divine sense suddenly enveloped Li Chunfeng and the other three. Cloud Water Dream Technique, activate. Li Chunfeng, who was still struggling, instantly fell silent. The keratin layer of the external beast slowly receded, returning to his original harmless, handsome young man appearance. His eyes were closed, and his facial expressions kept changing. On the other hand, the Foundation Establishment Master and the man with the surname Xiao were already immersed in beautiful dreams, unable to extricate themselves. Time slowly passed. 3 days later, Li Chunfeng finally let down his guard and all three of them showed contented smiles. Li Fan slowly opened his eyes. This is... A hint of confusion flashed through his mind. The small world where Li Chunfeng was located was a unique world with only an endless ocean. There were no islands in the ocean. Only giant sky-supporting turtles, with humans living on their backs, constantly swimming through the ocean. In the sky, a massive corpse of a 3-headed divine bird floated. It occupied almost 1/3 of the sky. The 3-headed divine bird had been dead for an unknown number of years, but its corpse remained incorruptible. Originally, various kinds of strange beasts gathered on it, feeding on the corpse of the 3-headed divine bird. Many years ago, a peerless genius appeared in one of the human tribes on a sky-supporting turtle. He mastered the ability to control beasts and selflessly passed it on to other human tribes. Under his leadership, humans successfully defeated the beasts that had been entrenched on the corpse of the 3-headed divine bird. From then on, they established a unified human empire on the corpse of the divine bird. After thousands of years of development, the empire had reached its peak in terms of the development and utilization of beasts. Beasts had permeated every aspect of the empire's human society. People could conveniently take a newly bred hybrid beast, the wide-back pung, to travel around the world. They could also tame beasts to hunt in the ocean, the sky, and even beyond the small world, in the void. The Empire had even developed a technology that combined the power of beasts with humans. This was the beast god armor that Li Chunfeng was wearing. However, even with so many achievements, a shadow always lingered over the Empire. It made the Empire's humans uneasy. Because the three-headed divine bird they regarded as a god did not die a natural death. It didn't even have only 3 heads before its death. The so-called three-headed divine bird should have been a 9-headed bird. This terrifying existence, which the Empire's people couldn't even imagine, had its 6 heads brutally cut off by someone. Then it was thrown here to die. The Empire's people were not completely unaware of the culprit. They knew that it was called the Immortal. Legends still circulated among the tribes about the Immortal who banished their ancestors here. The Empire's people felt both fear and longing for the Immortal. Because although the Empire was very developed, they still couldn't solve the problem of human lifespan. In the Empire, those who could live for 100 years were already considered extremely long-lived. Therefore, they coveted the immortal arts, which were rumored to possess both powerful strength and the ability to prolong life. After countless attempts that cost many lives, the Empire's pioneers finally crossed the Xi'an banishing array and came to the Xuanwang realm. Unfortunately, the news they found out was disappointing. To cultivate Xi'an arts, one must have spiritual energy. The world where the Empire was located did not have the so-called spiritual energy. Moreover, there was a restriction that prohibited the simultaneous cultivation of different arts. For the Empire's people, who found it incredibly difficult to even obtain a single immortal cultivation technique, cultivating immortality seemed like an unattainable dream. But the tenacious Empire's people did not give up. Instead, they continuously sent people to infiltrate the Xuanwang realm to gather more information. At the same time, they formed think tanks to study possible methods of cultivating immortality. Thus, through the efforts of generations, a plan that seemed like a fantasy was proposed. First, there was the issue of spiritual energy. The solution to this problem was purely accidental. The Empire's holy land, where the head of the divine bird was located. At the point where the 6 heads were severed, there were still traces of the sword that had once slain the divine bird. This sword was incredibly powerful. For thousands of years, the sword energy continued unabated, suppressing the vengeful spirit of the 9-headed bird. All beasts would sense it and instinctively avoid the sword energy. Once, an Empire citizen violated the law and visited the sword mark, secretly bringing his pet beast with him. Unexpectedly, he triggered the sword energy. The citizen was unharmed, but the sword energy instantly killed the beast. While the Empire's guard captured the citizen, they accidentally discovered that a luminous crystal core remained from the beast that should have been turned into nothingness by the sword energy. If they hadn't had contact with the Xuanwang realm before, the Empire's people might not have known what this crystal core was. However, those who had once practiced Dao arts were shocked to discover that the energy in this crystal core could actually replace spiritual energy for their cultivation. Later, through the Empire's research, they found that only some beast species had crystal cores. Fortunately, a species called the flying sphere beast bred extremely quickly and was easy to tame. After the first large-scale breeding, the Empire harvested hundreds of thousands of crystal cores. Among them, they discovered a mutated, refined version. A Qi refinement early-stage Dao practitioner successfully broke through to Qi refinement perfection with the help of these crystal cores. Unfortunately, due to the restrictions of immortal art cultivation, they couldn't progress further. However, even so, it gave the Empire a glimmer of hope for cultivating immortality. The next problem to solve was the need for various mediums for cultivating immortal arts and the restriction against cultivating different arts simultaneously. Chapter 432. After thoroughly understanding the history of the Xuanwang realm and carefully researching and verifying it with the few cultivators in the Empire, the think tank reached a bold conclusion. These restrictions were very likely only effective within the Xuanwang realm. Because the cultivation techniques stolen by the Empire's fraudsters, while also subject to the restriction of laws, cannot be cultivated together, did not have the same clear perception of the location of those who cultivated the same techniques as in the Xuanwang realm. In other words, the restrictions were weakened. This was probably due to the fact that the Empire was not in the Xuanwang realm itself, but rather in an affiliated small world. So, the solution to this problem was obvious. That was to break free from the shackles and leave the Xuanwang realm. To become an independent small world. For ordinary mortal civilizations, this might be an impossible task. But for the Empire, which could control the power of beasts, it was definitely worth a try. When the first generation of fraudsters crossed the immortal extinction great array and went to the Xuanwang realm, the group of realm-breaking whales hovering in the void had already caught the Empire's attention. After hundreds of years of trying and countless sacrifices of warriors, the Empire finally succeeded in capturing a lone realm-breaking whale. And subsequently, they achieved large-scale breeding of realm-breaking whales. Unlike other exotic beasts, realm-breaking whales reproduced through a peculiar method called solitary reproduction. Any individual in the population seemed to be able to produce offspring simply by absorbing unknown energy from the void. However, before this, the Empire had not considered using realm-breaking whales to escape the Xuanwang realm. Those numerous and massive realm-breaking whales were primarily used as food in the Empire. Realm-breaking whale meat was delicious and had the effect of improving one's physique if consumed consistently over a long period. It was very popular in the Empire. But since the plan to leave the Xuanwang realm was established, the Empire ordered the protection of realm-breaking whales and banned private consumption. The entire nation mobilized its resources to cultivate realm-breaking whales. Furthermore, they once again dispatched elite fraudsters to the Xuanwang realm to steal cultivation techniques. Before this, the Empire's highest level of cultivation technique was the nascent soul realm. Considering that they would be completely cut off from the Xuanwang realm in the future, it would be extremely difficult to independently deduce realms from scratch without reference to cultivation techniques beyond the nascent soul realm. Therefore, the Empire decided that it would be best to acquire Dao integration realm cultivation techniques. If that wasn't possible, then at least soul transformation realm techniques. To achieve this goal, the Empire sent a total of more than a dozen extremely loyal warriors to sneak into the Xuanwang realm. To avoid a complete wipeout, they formed small groups of a few people each, and besides their group members, they were unaware of each other's identities. Zhu Xiaotang and Xiao Jin were originally from the same group. Another member of the group died due to an accident, and Li Chenfeng was a backup member who arrived later. For all these years, the three of them had been steadfast in their mission, accumulating contribution points, trying to exchange for Dao integration realm cultivation techniques and then escape back to their homeland. Until Li Fan arrived out of nowhere and caught them all. From Li Chenfeng's memories, Li Fan also learned that there was still debate within the Empire about whether to leave the Xuanwang realm. The strongest opposition group had a simple reason. Such actions, if discovered, would bring about the Empire's downfall. So what if they could control beasts? Could they withstand a sword strike from an immortal? The nine-headed divine bird, whose head had been severed, was still staring at us with eyes wide open in death. Due to the innate fear of immortals, the opposition group had a strong presence in the Empire. However, the ruler of the Empire, the Empress, forcibly suppressed all opposition for the time being. The ultimate law-stealing plan was thus implemented. The Empress was the descendant of the person who first awakened the ability to control beasts. The imperial family of the Empire is surnamed Shu. Exotic beasts, the Shu surname. The combination of these two words made it difficult for Li Fan not to associate them with Shu Ke of the imperial beast sect he had encountered in the fallen immortal realm. But it was also possible that it was simply a coincidence. I once saw in ancient texts that there were such crystal cores inside ancient demonic beasts. Some cultivators could even absorb the power within them for cultivation. I thought they had gone extinct, but now it seems that a few beasts still possess them. It seems that the current beasts are indeed descendants of ancient demonic beasts. The sword mark left by the sword energy that had persisted for thousands of years vaguely hinted at the imperial beast sect of the past. Li Fan couldn't help but feel a bit interested in this small world. Perhaps in the future, I can spare some time to explore this empire. But for now, the important things come first. Li Fan looked at Li Chenfeng and the others who were lost in their dreams and snapped his fingers lightly. In an instant, their beautiful dreams shattered, and the three of them returned to reality. Their faces were initially filled with confusion. After looking around, they gradually came to their senses. The experience they had just had, their successful theft of cultivation techniques, the Empire's escape from the Xuanwang realm, the development of their own lineage. It was all just a dream. You're quite bold, Li Fan's light words, but to their ears, they were like thunder. Li Chenfeng and the others immediately turned pale with fear, their hearts filled with despair. Their own deaths didn't matter. The only thing they feared was that their homeland would be implicated. At that time, if an immortal were to unleash their wrath, it wouldn't just be a matter of thousands of deaths. But tragically, they couldn't even commit suicide now. However, to their surprise, the powerful cultivator in front of them said something that was completely unexpected. Very good. I admire you. Li Fan nodded in satisfaction and released Li Qinfeng and the others from their restraints. The three of them exchanged glances, but they still didn't dare to act rashly. Zhu Xiaotang cautiously asked, "Senior, are you planning to let us go?" Li Fan chuckled, "I never intended to hold you accountable. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance losing cultivation techniques has nothing to do with me. On the contrary, it was you who were aggressive. If I didn't have a few skills, I might have carelessly lost my life here." Li Fan's lips curled into a smile as he looked at Li Qinfeng. Li Qinfeng took a deep breath and hurriedly said, "It was my fault for being reckless. Please forgive me, Senior." As he spoke, Li Qinfeng actually knelt down on both knees and was about to kneel before Li Fan to apologize. Li Fan shook his head and stopped him. "There's no need for that formality in front of me. Come, let's go to your secret room. I have something to tell you." Upon hearing this, Zhu Xiaotang and the others all looked uneasy. They never expected that their supposedly secret arrangement would be so easily seen through by this person. Their hearts filled with anxiety, the three of them followed Li Fan into the secret room in the courtyard. Li Fan's next words instantly dispelled the anxiety in their hearts. Instead, they were filled with the joy of a reprieve from death. "To be honest, I am also from a small world outside the Xuanwang realm," Li Fan said slowly. Chapter 433. My home, called the Dali. Unlike yours, the Dali has a towering volcano at its center. Every once in a while, the volcano erupts, taking countless lives with it. And in recent years, its activity has become increasingly frequent. It's clear that the Dali's ultimate fate is to be completely swallowed by the volcano's lava. Hundreds of years ago, I ventured alone to the Xuanwang realm, seeking a way to save my home. Li Fan, his eyes filled with reminiscence, spoke to Li Qinfeng and the others. Unfortunately, although I found a temporary way to suppress the volcano, to completely eradicate the hidden danger, my current cultivation is still insufficient. But that's not the point. Li Fan abruptly changed the subject. During my time in the Xuanwang realm, I came into contact with many mortals like myself, who had smuggled themselves out of their small worlds. They often lived extremely difficult lives. Out of sympathy, I would always try to lend a helping hand. It was because of this that I was able to join the organization I'm a part of now. And that's also why I'm here to see you today. Li Qinfeng and the others were stunned. What organization? Li Fan spoke with utmost seriousness, an organization dedicated to uniting all the outer realms to launch a counterattack against the Immortal realm. Attack the Immortal realm? The three of them were utterly shocked. Li Fan stood with his hands behind his back, nodding slightly. That's right. 1,000 years ago, we were driven out of our homes, filled with pain and resentment. Over the long years, the memories of our homelands have faded for most. But there are still a select few who have kept everything in their hearts. They vowed that one day, they would return. They would reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Li Fan activated his 7-aperture exquisite heart, using a voice filled with persuasion. The Xuanwang realm, compared to our small worlds, is so vast. It's teeming with life, abundant in resources. But it's occupied by those damned cultivators. We, however, are forced to live in barren, cramped territories, struggling to survive. How unfair, Li Fan declared indignantly. Li Qinfeng, along with the others, compared the world their empire occupied with the Xuanwang realm. They couldn't help but nod in agreement. Compared to the vast Immortal Alliance, we know our own strength is too weak. Only by uniting all our forces can we possibly stand a chance against them. In fact, 500 years ago, we made an attempt. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough allies at the time, and ultimately failed. But we haven't given up. Li Fan's eyes burned with intensity as he looked at Li Qinfeng and the others. Over the years, we've been searching for new partners, accumulating energy again. There are countless outer realms, and who knows how many remain ununited. But like you, all those who have smuggled themselves in are extremely cautious. So progress has been slow. It was only recently that I noticed you. After a bit of probing, I found. Zhu Xiaotang seemed to recall something, and exclaimed. The counterattack against the Immortal realm 500 years ago. The Empire's records of the Xuanwang realm history indeed mention this event. Li Qinfeng's eyes flashed with a hint of regret, but he quickly masked it. After a moment of contemplation, He asked cautiously, "So, Senior, are you here to invite our empire to join the organization?" "That's right," Li Fan nodded. Zhu Xiaotang was about to speak, but Li Chenfeng pulled him back. This young man, despite being the youngest of the three, held a dominant position among them. He looked at Li Fan and replied diplomatically, "We admire the organization's grand goal. But our empire is too weak. Even if we join the organization, we're afraid we won't be of much help. We'll just be a burden." Li Fan raised his hand, interrupting Li Chenfeng. "I've seen your empire's strength in your dreams. It's not very strong, but among the many worlds that have joined the organization, it can be considered mid to upper tier. You don't need to belittle yourselves." Li Fan looked at Li Chenfeng with a knowing smile. "Moreover, even those worlds without any immortal powers, the organization hasn't refused their applications to join. After all, every bit of strength is good. If you lack strength, then contribute with your manpower. The organization will provide you with free training to cultivate qualified warriors." Li Fan's words left no room for refusal. Li Chenfeng's smile gradually became strained. He tried to argue further, but he saw Li Fan's expression turn cold. Li Chenfeng's heart sank. Tension began to spread throughout the secret room. However, for some reason, after a while, Li Fan's demeanor softened again. He snorted coldly, "I didn't want to tell you this, but it seems you're still clinging to that laughable escape plan." "Such weak escape ISDS. Li Fan said coldly, "To be honest, your plan to use 100,000 boundary-breaking whales to escape the Xuanwang realm is completely impossible. The moment you leave the Xuanwang realm, it will be the day your empire perishes." Li Chenfeng and the others were completely dumbfounded. "Senior, what do you mean by that? See for yourselves." Li Fan pointed a finger at the three of them. In an instant, Li Chenfeng felt the surrounding scenery disappear. It was as if he was in endless void. In the distance, a giant orb flickered. A stream of light flew out from the orb, attempting to escape. But strangely, after it had flown a certain distance from the orb, it changed its course and flew upwards irreversibly. There, as if some terrifying beast had opened its jaws, it was drawn in to be devoured. Li Chenfeng, along with the others, were drenched in cold sweat, falling to the ground in utter bewilderment. "What is that?" He stared at Li Fan, his eyes filled with terror. "Why do you think we fight tooth and nail to counterattack the immortal realm?" "Because we have nowhere to escape." Li Fan spoke with a mocking tone. "That's the immortal ruins, an unknown and terrifying existence that has its sights set on the entire Xuanwang realm. The Xuanwang realm is vast and mighty. Perhaps it can withstand the immortal ruins for a long time. But our small worlds are a different story. And let's not forget about your empire's ridiculous plan, which you worked so hard on." Li Fan kept hitting Li Chenfeng with the truth. The three of them from the empire realized the fate that awaited them if they were to leave the Xuanwang realm. Their faces turned pale as death. "Therefore, joining us is the only way out," Li Fan said plainly. Chapter 434. "Of course, if you don't believe me and insist on testing the might of the open black lens bracket immortal ruins close black lens bracket, I won't stop you. After all, good advice is wasted on the dead. The organization doesn't absolutely need your help," Li Fan said nonchalantly. The three were after all elites selected by the empire, with extraordinary determination. After a moment, their pale faces gradually relaxed. Li Chenfeng replied, "Senior, this matter is of great importance, we can't make the decision." Li Fan readily said, "I'll give you 2 months. After 2 months, I will come back here and need your clear answer." Li Chenfeng smiled wryly and could only reluctantly agree. "Involving the secrets of the organization, just in case, we need to take some small measures." Li Fan looked at the three and flicked his finger. Li Chenfeng felt a chill enter his body, instantly disappearing and becoming undetectable. However, they dared not say anything and nodded in agreement. Before leaving, Li Fan took out 100 standard high-grade spirit stones from his storage ring and gave them to the three from the empire. "This is the organization's rule. For the first meeting, there has to be some gifts. But with 10,000 contribution points, you guys may not be able to look at it as all." Li Fan looked towards the few Foundation Establishment cultivators who were still asleep outside the secret room. Foundation Establishment Masters. HMPH, good method. Although each Qi refinement cultivator can only be squeezed for a limited amount of resources, but like gathering sand into a tower, when the quantity is large enough, it becomes quite considerable. Zhu Xiaotang's face was red with embarrassment, not knowing how to answer. However, there are no lies that can't be broken forever. Once you join the organization, stop it. If you want contribution points, the organization will help. Li Fan came suddenly and left quickly. After speaking those words, he soared into the sky and disappeared from the three's sight. Only the deathly silence remained in the secret room. What's the use of contribution points? We can't leave the Xuanwang realm. Wanting to establish our own lineage is simply impossible. After a long time, Xiao Jin said dejectedly. Zhu Xiaotang looked at Li Chenfeng and asked, Master Li, what do you think? How much of what that person said was true and how much was false? As thieves who had infiltrated the Xuanwang realm, they were highly vigilant about everything. They naturally wouldn't believe everything said by a randomly appearing cultivator from the sky. Li Chenfeng pondered for a moment and replied, it should be true. This person's cultivation is unfathomable. The beast god armor in my body can theoretically contend with golden core cultivators. But in front of this person, I was easily toyed with no power to resist. And that method of making people fall into a dream. A hint of fear flashed in Li Chenfeng's eyes. If he really has malicious intentions, Li Chenfeng shook his head and fell silent. What he wanted to say was unspoken. If that's the case, then we need to pass the news back as soon as possible. Zhu Xiaotang said. Yes, I will personally return to the Empire and explain the situation. Of course, the final outcome still depends on the decision of the think tank and the Empress. Li Chenfeng said decisively. Sigh, the sacrifices of generations, all for a task that is fundamentally impossible to complete. I'm afraid that once the news is released, the Empire will face another major purge. Zhu Xiaotang sighed softly. Li Chenfeng didn't respond, but the gloom in his eyes couldn't be suppressed. Not daring to delay, after activating the beast god armor, he flew rapidly towards a certain direction. Li Chenfeng stopped in the air above a certain sea area, then suddenly plunged down, disappearing into the deep sea. In fact, the form of the beast god armor changed, and he seemed to transform into a deep-sea monster. He changed direction again. After doing this several times, he finally left the Kongyun Sea and entered Shilin province. In the ruins of a deep valley in the mountains, he finally disappeared. The formless killing intent lost its perception, and Li Fan smiled slightly. They are quite cautious. Unfortunately, it's useless. Having learned about the entrance to the passage leading to the Empire, Li Fan's mind temporarily withdrew from that direction. At this time, he didn't return to Wangxian Island, but instead came to the depths of the sea again and dug out a secret chamber. He arranged rituals in the four corners, preparing to conduct his first exploration of the fallen immortal realm in this life. After open black lens bracket truth close black lens bracket, I wonder if the scenes I encounter in the fallen immortal realm will be different from the previous life. Will I return to Ningyuan City and meet Brother Zhang? Or will I appear in the Imperial Beast sect, or somewhere else? Li Fan thought to himself, and shouted, blessings bestowed by the celestial sovereign of Xuanwang. His vision gradually blurred. Junior brother, junior brother. Li Fan opened his eyes and his heart stirred. In front of him was Brother Zhang's concerned face. Zhang Qinmo. Having already known Zhang Qinmo's future achievements, Li Fan's gaze towards his senior brother was completely different now. Did I become handsome again? Why do I feel your gaze is strange, junior brother? Zhang Qinmo touched his chin and asked with a smile. Li Fan suppressed his own strangeness and chatted with his senior brother as he had tried to do in the past. When Zhang Qinmo once again talked about his three great aspirations, Li Fan didn't remain silent in shock as he had in the previous life. Instead, he clapped his hands and exclaimed, if I met another cultivator who dared to be so arrogant with only foundation establishment cultivation, I would definitely strike him down with a purple thunderbolt. But when these words come out of your mouth, senior brother, for some reason, I feel like it's justified. Zhang Qinmo laughed heartily and patted Li Fan's shoulder. Junior brother, when did you learn to flatter? But I like what you said. Li Fan continued to chat with his senior brother, subtly flattering him. After a while, Li Fan pretended to ask casually, by the way, senior brother, if one day your aspirations are all fulfilled, what will happen? Zhang Qinmo was stunned. After thinking carefully for a moment, he replied, things in the world are often fickle. Even dead ashes can be revived. It's normal. Take the matter of exterminating demons, for example, even if I truly achieve it at some point, there's no guarantee that demons won't appear again on the earth in the future. With my personality, I would most likely leave behind a open black lens bracket grand aspiration dharma body close black lens bracket to serve as an eternal suppression. Li Fan couldn't help but ask curiously, "Senior brother, what is this grand aspiration Dharma body?" Jiang Qinmo smiled, "It's just an unrealistic fantasy. You can think of it as a body that turns into a law of heaven and earth and exists forever. If it's triggered by specific conditions, the Dharma body will appear in the world. For example, after demons are exterminated, if a great demon reappears, the open black lens bracket extermination close black lens bracket grand aspiration Dharma body will manifest and kill it. In this way, it can ensure that it remains unchanged for generations and the aspiration continues forever." "Junior brother, what do you think of my method?" Jiang Qinmo asked. "Senior brother, you are truly a prodigy," Li Fan praised sincerely. Chapter 435. Jiang Qinmo burst into laughter again, finding his junior disciple increasingly likable. Of course, Li Fan admired his senior brother, but he still had to go through the motions. He used the same method as in his previous life. He went to Mr. Bai's basement and crafted absolute immortal stone nails. Then, he lured his senior brother there. Taking him by surprise, he sealed his meridians with the stone nails, pretending to interrogate him about the purple elixir nirvana technique. Jiang Qinmo stared at Li Fan with an incredulous look, as if he wanted to remember him forever. Then, he committed suicide. After dealing with his senior brother, Songhe and Songhe's followers in Ningyuan City could no longer cause any trouble. With the experience from his previous life, Li Fan efficiently resolved the event of the Ningyuan City's destruction during the fight between cultivators. The surrounding scenery instantly blurred. Li Fan once again saw Mr. Bai standing dazedly in the bloody ruins. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Li Fan tried, he could not see his face clearly. Finally, the screen went black. Li Fan exited the fallen immortal realm and returned to the real world. Sensing his gains, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a little regret. The clearance reward for fetching longevity fruits from Ningyuan City, 3 rebirth longevity fruits that can extend life by 300 years, still exists. It's just that after defeating senior brother Jiang, I didn't get any new techniques. However, Li Fan soon felt relieved. Senior brother Jiang is still alive in the world, and I don't need his techniques. If I really bring him here, it would be even more troublesome. Li Fan analyzed this trip to the fallen immortal realm. So far, it seems that the fallen immortal realm can't detect my past life experiences after I reincarnated. But one thing is certain, I am very special in the fallen immortal realm. It's like some kind of guidance, making me go through fixed events. First, it was fetching longevity fruits from Ningyuan City. Next, it'll be change in the Imperial Beast sect, right? Interesting. Li Fan didn't know what caused this special situation. But since the fallen immortal realm couldn't sense the effect of truth, he had nothing to fear. On the contrary, these fixed events in the fallen immortal realm became a way for him to obtain fixed treasures in each life. Just like the Dao transformation stone in Yi Xing's tomb. As he explored deeper into the fallen immortal realm, he would likely obtain more resources quickly in each life. This was beneficial to Li Fan. After obtaining 3 rebirth longevity fruits in the fallen immortal realm, the time restriction for entering it again had slightly increased. However, it wasn't as long as the full year in his previous life. He could enter again in about 8 months. The Imperial Beast sect. Li Fan began to look forward to what he could gain from the scene of change in the Imperial Beast sect. Judging from the level of the rebirth longevity fruits, it shouldn't be bad. He calculated the time, not long before his appointment with the 5 Elders Association about the broken stone face. Li Fan erased the traces in the secret room, transformed into Zhou Qingang's appearance, and flew towards the agreed location. It was another uninhabited island. Li Fan searched for a while and found a stone with coordinates carved on it. It seems that the 5 Elders Association has other secret agents in the Kangyun Sea besides Zhou Qingang. This stone, the communication stone, and Zhou Qingang's expenses require someone to arrange. But it's not wise to act rashly. Let's get the 5 million contribution points first. Li Fan crushed the stone and turned towards the location marked on it. It was another underwater ruin. Li Fan placed his palms on the inconspicuous broken stone and successfully connected to the communication. Head, what's the word? Li Fan asked, feigning nervousness. They have agreed to the deal. But we need to confirm the questions are correct first. Okay, I'll go back and tell He Zhenghao. By the way, Head, I've done such a great job, is there any reward? Li Fan rubbed his hands together, looking expectantly at the stone face. Li Fan's reaction seemed to be within the stone face's expectations. He sneered, don't worry, you won't be shortchanged. Haven't you been coveting the One Heart Venerable's picture book for a long time? As long as this mission goes smoothly, I'll have someone send it to you. The One Heart Sovereign's picture book. Li Fan instantly recalled the scenes of eroticism he had felt in the soul fragments of the Five Elders Association cultivators in the Gathering Soul Pearl. He cursed inwardly. Li Fan stammered, hesitant to speak. What? The stone face was slightly surprised. Head, this, I've seen it. Can I have something else? Li Fan lowered his head slightly, his voice low, his face slightly embarrassed. Huh, the stone face was stunned, then he understood. No wonder your expenses are so high. You've been spending it all on this. He was furious. Li Fan could only remain silent. After a while, the stone face's anger subsided. After thinking for a moment, he said, forget it, considering your contribution this time, I won't hold it against you. How about the carefree crystal lattice of the carefree paradise? It's like floating in the clouds, ascending to the paradise of bliss. Haven't you been nagging me about it for a long time? Li Fan felt a wave of helplessness in his heart. After thinking for a moment, he could only find an excuse and said tactfully, Head, here's what I think. Didn't you tell me to get close to He Zhenghao? But since he switched to the nascent soul technique, his cultivation has been rising rapidly, 1 level a day. It won't be long before he breaks through to the golden core stage. And I've been stuck at the foundation establishment stage for a long time. If I can't break through soon, with my foundation establishment cultivation, it will be difficult to befriend him. After all, this person. Li Fan clicked his tongue, shaking his head repeatedly. Huh, you've finally learned your lesson. The stone face looked at Li Fan in surprise. But after thinking for a moment, he felt that what he said made sense. He nodded immediately. Not bad, He Zhenghao is very important. He is one of the key people you need to win over. Also, you can try to get the structure of the Heavenly Yuan transformation formation from him. After a pause, the stone face continued, well, the task is arduous. It seems that we have to improve your cultivation to the golden core stage as soon as possible. You can exchange for a technique yourself in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, we can't provide help in this regard. But I can give you a few bottles of enlightenment pills. Li Fan was overjoyed. He had experienced the miraculous effects of the enlightenment pills. But it was difficult to obtain them, even if he paid a lot of money, he couldn't buy many. If he could get some from the stone face, it would be the best. Just a little bit, it's not enough. However, Li Fan still pretended to be greedy. Head, you know my aptitude, no matter how miraculous the enlightenment pills are, they won't be of much use to me. The stone face said impatiently, don't bother me, I'm thinking. Chapter 436. The image on the broken stone abruptly fell silent. Li Fan didn't urge, patiently waiting. After a long time, the human face responded, found it. There's something that's perfect for you. Oh, what is it? Li Fan acted somewhat excited. The devouring heaven and earth great technique. The human face said with a smug look. Devouring heaven and earth. Li Fan squinted his eyes, thinking for a while, but couldn't find any related information in his memory. Fortunately, the human face didn't intend to test Li Fan, directly explaining, it's a cultivation method left behind by an infamous cultivator from ancient times. This person took a unique path, not absorbing spiritual energy from the heavens and earth, but instead directly devouring spiritual veins and earth veins for cultivation. Although his progress was extremely fast, he didn't know how to restrain himself, acting recklessly, and in a short time, caused the spiritual energy of several provinces to dry up and mountains to change shape. Eventually, he was discovered and suffered the fate of being skinned, his bones extracted, and his soul scattered. However, his secret technique was preserved after being interrogated. Li Fan thought for a moment, thoughtfully saying, Head means, let me use the devouring heaven and earth great technique to secretly absorb the spiritual veins and earth veins of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. The human face nodded, with a look of, you're a quick learner, most of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's strongholds are built on top of earth veins. You, as the guardian of Tian Island, just be careful, absorb a little each time, and it will surely not be discovered. And this little bit of earth vein energy, for a foundation establishment cultivator like you, is already a great supplement. In this way, you will be able to quickly advance to the golden core realm. Li Fan exclaimed with joy, Head, you are truly wise and valiant. The human face, however, didn't fall for Li Fan's flattery, coldly snorting, Go and get the first day's exam questions from He Zhenghao. Wait for the results to come out and confirm them before we conduct the transaction that night. At that time, I will send someone specifically. You just need to handle the handover. I'll also have him bring you the devouring heaven and earth great technique by the way. Li Fan wasn't surprised by the human face's decision. After all, 5 million contribution points was no small sum. It wouldn't be possible to hand it over to him, a foundation establishment cultivator on the surface, to manage. So, he nodded repeatedly in agreement. You go now, the human face instructed. We've been meeting frequently recently, be careful on the way. At crucial moments, don't expose any flaws. Head, you can rest assured, Li Fan patted his chest and guaranteed. After agreeing on the location for their next meeting, the broken stone gradually lost its luster, turning into dust. Cultivating by devouring earth vein energy, Li Fan suddenly remembered something. If I can utilize this, then my cultivation speed in this life might be even faster than I expected. Wearing Zhou Qingong's appearance, Li Fan quietly flew back to Tian Island. His clone was deeply hidden within Tian Island's protective formation, so he didn't have to worry about being discovered. However, for safety's sake, Li Fan set up another layer of formation in his closed-door cultivation chamber. He also cast the secret technique, one hand covers the sky. To further conceal himself. After doing all this, he took out a blank jade slip from his storage ring. The blue light of the Tao integration stone flowed through Li Fan's mind, and the exam questions he had memorized from his previous life were all engraved by him onto the jade slip. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance's recruitment exam was divided into numerous subjects: politics, law, economics, martial arts, artifact, formation, pill, talismans, and so on. It was hosted by the various provincial government offices, with the martial arts hall assisting. All applicants had to take exams in all subjects. After a comprehensive evaluation, the best candidates would be selected and assigned to the 10,000 Immortals Alliance headquarters or other important confidential areas. Then, based on their overall performance and individual job preferences, their positions would be assigned. The exam format wasn't limited to questions and answers like those on a spiritual sense ball. For example, in the politics exam, candidates would be immersed in a real illusion similar to the era. They would experience various events, thereby testing their awareness and loyalty. And for skills like artifact, formation, pill, and talismans, besides theoretical tests, candidates also had to perform practical operations on the spot. The number of cultivators participating in the recruitment exam each time was numerous, although the vast majority were just there to participate. But this process was time-consuming and laborious for those involved. However, cultivators were still eager to participate, and the number of applicants for each exam never decreased but instead increased. Overall, for those who paid attention, the once-a-decade recruitment exam could be considered a grand event. After engraving the first day's exam questions and the rest separately on 2 jade slips, Li Fan let out a sigh of relief. Li Fan himself, of course, had no intention of taking the exam. After all, for him, there were many more convenient ways to enter the 10,000 Immortals Alliance system. Moreover, his primary task in this life was to advance to the nascent soul realm using the 5 elements subworld. Joining the 10,000 Immortals Alliance would only add an extra constraint, which was not conducive to his actions. There's still a month and a half left, just wait patiently. Li Fan cultivated while carefully considering any possible variables that might arise in the future. Time passed slowly. During this period, to avoid any suspicion, Li Fan invited He Zhenghao to Tian Island several times as a guest. He sealed the formation and chatted with him late into the night. Li Fan, who knew He Zhenghao's temperament well, naturally had a pleasant conversation with him. After several times, He Zhenghao increasingly treated Zhou Qingong as a confidant. And in casual conversations, He Zhenghao boasted several times about being guided by a cultivator from the ancient Tianji sect. He had made a significant investment and completely turned his life around, changing his destiny from then on. After cultivating the nascent soul technique, he was now on the verge of reaching the golden core realm. Li Fan pretended to be extremely envious on the surface. He repeatedly flattered He Zhenghao, begging him to remember him the next time he had a chance to make a fortune. He Zhenghao couldn't resist Li Fan's persistent pleading and readily agreed. Li Fan then put on a relieved smile. Other than that, the Kong Yun Sea was calm and peaceful, with no other unusual events occurring. Soon, 3 days were left before the official start of the recruitment exam. After meeting He Zhenghao again for a long conversation and letting him leave, Li Fan suddenly stood up. It's time. He quietly flew towards the meeting location he had agreed upon with the human face on the broken stone. Following the same steps as before, he found the meeting place for this time. After verification, the human face suddenly appeared. How is it? Did you get the exam questions? A rare hint of nervousness and anticipation could be heard in the human face's voice. Li Fan couldn't hide his excitement either. He nodded, took out the jade slip engraved with the first day's exam questions, and placed it on the broken stone. Yellow light enveloped the jade slip, and the human face's image became blurry. After a moment, the human face said, "Good. Wait here. In 3 days, you'll know the outcome." Before Li Fan could respond, the human face hurriedly disappeared. The yellow light dimmed, but this time, the broken stone didn't shatter. Li Fan looked at the broken stone, his eyes filled with a deep meaning. Chapter 437. 3 days later, as the sun set, Li Fan sat cross-legged on the seabed, eyes closed, cultivating. Suddenly, he sensed a yellow light flashing on the broken stone, and Li Fan abruptly opened his eyes. He rose and asked, "Head, how is it? Are the test questions authentic?" "Haha, you little rascal, you've done a great service this time." The voice of the human face was filled with uncontainable excitement. "The test questions are real. The compartments are not wrong. I've always heard that the 10,000 Immortals Alliance is outwardly glamorous, but in reality, it's already rotten to the core. It's even worse than the rumors. Such a major event as the entry exam, which concerns the future and fate of the organization, is actually being used for personal gain. This is just the Heng family in Tianyu province. What about those with even more power? I dare not even imagine." The human face seemed to be in a state of shock, repeatedly clicking its tongue, filled with disbelief. Li Fan then interjected, "Isn't this better for us? The faster the 10,000 Immortals Alliance dies, the sooner our 5 Elders Association can unify the Xuanlong realm." The human face nodded in agreement. "That's right. Victory will ultimately belong to our 5 Elders Association." He paused, his excited mood gradually calming down. His expression turned solemn as he instructed, "Time is of the essence, go contact He Zhenghao immediately and get the remaining test questions. The transaction location will be within the Wankang Pavilion. I'll send someone, you're responsible for the reception. By the way, to prevent the remaining test questions from being incorrect, you must wait until the exam is over and you receive notification before letting him leave." The human face carefully instructed Li Fan on various precautions, then explained the contact method before disappearing. As usual, Li Fan destroyed all traces of the scene before returning to Tian Island. Deep within the protective formation, Li Fan and his clone sat facing each other. Wankang Pavilion. Li Fan had been to this place before. It was where He Zhenghao, in his 12th life, had stored his legacy, the detailed explanation of the 100 Meridians formation, before his death. Located on Yulin Island in the Kongyan Sea. And in his previous life, Zhou Qingang had obtained the spirit stone supply for the human face through this place. It seems that this place might be a secret base of the 5 Elders Association. Li Fan pondered for a moment, then immediately cast the "one hand covers the sky" secret technique, wearing the concealing chi talisman, masking his clone's cultivation, and waiting for the 5 Elders Association's people to arrive. His main body, however, randomly transformed into another appearance, and through the teleportation array, he arrived on Yulin Island ahead of time. After a short while, when his main body had secretly lurked in the waters outside Yulin Island, a cultivator suddenly appeared in the teleportation array on Tian Island. The person's appearance was unclear, and after arriving on Tian Island, they circled the island, then shook their head and sighed. They stood silently in the air for a while before slowly flying away. Li Fan's clone, upon seeing this, quietly followed. The person's flying speed was not fast, leisurely as if intentionally waiting. After flying a distance away from Tian Island, they reached a desolate and uninhabited sea area. They suddenly stopped and transmitted a voice, "Fellow Taoist, why are you secretly following me?" Li Fan's clone, following the instructions of the human face on the broken stone, did not answer. Instead, he directly struck out with a palm infused with the power of yellow earth element. The person, seemingly unprepared for Li Fan's sudden attack without warning, did not resist, stunned in place. As Li Fan's palm was about to strike him, the earth element abruptly transformed into wood element. The person did not dodge or evade, taking Li Fan's palm directly, unfazed. Let's go, to Yulin Island. After verifying Li Fan's identity, they spoke in a strange voice without further greeting. Use the teleportation array, or? Li Fan asked. Fly. Having said that, they grabbed Li Fan closely and then stepped forward. The scenery around them rapidly changed, only slightly slower than the dust-crossing boat that Li Fan had ridden in his previous life. This speed, soul transformation realm, or perhaps a nascent soul specializing in speed. Li Fan remained calm and did not look at the cultivator beside him. They spoke no more along the way. Soon, the person brought Li Fan to Yulin Island. They scanned the area but did not find He Zhenghao. Did you tell He Zhenghao? They asked again, as if confirming. Li Fan nodded. Should I ask him where he is? The person stopped Li Fan. Wait. It's best not to use communication spirit talismans. Li Fan nodded in agreement, seemingly understanding the implication. At the same time, his main body, without any concealment, flew towards the location where they were. Soon, the Five Elders Association's receiving cultivator noticed Li Fan's main body approaching. He furrowed his brows, increasing his vigilance. Li Fan came directly in front of them. Zhou Qingong, is it? He Zhenghao sent me. As these words left his mouth, both the Five Elders Association cultivator and Li Fan's clone turned pale. He first glanced at Zhou Qingong, then his face darkened, and he coldly asked, "What do you mean, fellow Taoist?" Li Fan, on the other hand, looked unconcerned and said, "What do I mean? Of course, I'm here to make a transaction. Why isn't He Zhenghao here himself?" The Five Elders Association cultivator hesitated for a moment before asking. Li Fan chuckled, such a dangerous matter, how could he possibly come in person? If things go wrong, wouldn't he be implicated? It seems you don't know this person very well. The Five Elders Association cultivator looked at Zhou Qingong again. He continued to ask, if you're caught, won't it implicate him? 5 million contribution points, does he really trust you so much? Li Fan became completely impatient. That's none of your concern. The question is, are you going to trade or not? If you don't, I'll leave. What are you afraid of? You're so timid. Li Fan looked at them with dissatisfaction. Besides, who you trade with is your business, as long as the test questions are real, right? His voice boomed, without any concealment. The Five Elders Association cultivators slightly changed color, subconsciously observing the surroundings. After thinking for a moment, they felt that what the other party said was not unreasonable. Glancing at Zhou Qingong, they said in a deep voice. All right, keep your voice down. Follow me. Then, they took the two of them into the Wankang Pavilion. The staff in the Wankang Pavilion all acted as if they hadn't seen Li Fan and the others. They reached the deepest secret chamber without any obstruction. Closing the secret chamber, the Five Elders Association cultivator said in a low voice, the test questions. Li Fan countered, the 5 million. Money in hand. Goods in hand. Both spoke in unison, looking at each other for a moment. They faced each other for a while before exchanging their storage rings. You can't leave yet, the Five Elders Association cultivator said coldly. I know. You're afraid the test questions are fake, right? Li Fan looked like he had nothing to fear. Look at you guys, never seen the world before. He showed a hint of disdain, sat down boldly, and crossed his legs. It's fine, I'll just wait here until the exam is over. Chapter 438. Li Fan glanced at his storage ring. 5,000 standardized top-grade spirit stones were neatly stacked inside, their brilliance captivating. 5 million contribution points, the largest sum Li Fan had ever seen in his countless rebirths and reincarnations. Even a complete waste, with the blessing of the new law, could use this enormous contribution points to defy fate and reach at least the nascent soul stage. Yet, Li Fan only cast a casual glance, showing no sign of excitement. He took out a spirit stone, twirling it in his hand, and said casually, good quality. Such calmness in the face of immense wealth. And it wasn't a facade. He truly didn't seem to care, or perhaps he was used to it. Just what kind of background does this fellow have? Standing opposite Li Fan, the Five Elders Association cultivator scrutinized him, his heart filled with doubts. However, he decided to probe further. He coldly said, kid, still acting so cocky here. Don't you worry that we'll just kill you. Li Fan appeared unconcerned, scared. absolutely terrified. Who wouldn't be afraid of death? He challenged the other with a glance, not looking the least bit afraid. But I'm just a errand boy, a disposable life. What good would killing me do? Besides, I understand. You wouldn't dare touch me. Li Fan put away the spirit stone, sat upright, and adopted a serious expression. Oh, why is that? The Five Elders Association cultivator asked with interest. It's obvious, isn't it? Someone who can spend 5 million contribution points to buy test questions must be loaded. They wouldn't risk their reputation for a mere few contribution points. They wouldn't go back on their word and kill me. Sure, killing me would get you the entrance exam questions for free this time. But what about next time, or the time after that? Can you guarantee that you'll find another reliable source like us? Hearing Li Fan's words, the Five Elders Association cultivator gradually shed his playful demeanor and became serious. Besides, aside from the entrance exam questions, wouldn't you want other, more confidential things? Li Fan squinted his eyes and asked. More confidential things? The Five Elders Association cultivator was instantly surprised and delighted. He hurriedly asked, like what? Li Fan hummed, not answering directly, but vaguely said. Good stuff. As long as you're willing to pay, anything you can think of, or can't think of, we can get it for you. His words made the other's heart itch. But Li Fan suddenly stopped talking and said, but, you know, there are risks involved in trading these things. So, we have to gradually open up, depending on the specific situation of our cooperation. Don't think too much for now, just complete this transaction first. Li Fan glanced at Zhou Qingong and the shadowy Five Elders Association cultivator, then became lazy again. Hearing this, the Five Elders Association cultivator nodded slowly, refraining from further questioning. Feeling the 10 jade slips in his storage ring, he transmitted a voice message to Zhou Qingong, you stay here and watch him. I'll be back soon. His tone was unpleasant, clearly showing dissatisfaction with Zhou Qingong's intelligence-gathering failure this time. Li Fan's clone nodded slightly, then his eyes flashed with killing intent, staring fiercely at his original body. The Five Elders Association cultivator was about to leave when Li Fan, as if suddenly remembering something, added. There are 10 jade slips in the ring, each containing the entrance exam questions. They also have a contract attached. It states that only one person can view each jade slip. And the content cannot be shared with others. Only those who have signed the contract can read the content of the jade slips. I'm sure you're aware of the power of the contract, so I won't go into detail. The Five Elders Association cultivator had already sensed that familiar power, and previously, Zhou Qingong had mentioned that the test questions were limited to 10 people's knowledge. So, he wasn't surprised, merely saying, I know, and leaving the secret room. Leaving Li Fan's original body and clone facing each other. He hadn't detected any surveillance methods here, but Li Fan didn't let his guard down. He continued to act out the scene. Zhou Qing'ang, played by the clone, kept his eyes fixed on the original body, never leaving him out of sight. Meanwhile, the original body would occasionally show displeasure, glaring back with a bad expression. Time passed as Li Fan practiced his acting skills. In the blink of an eye, 6 days went by. On the afternoon of the last day of the entrance exam, the Five Elders Association cultivator returned. He still had his appearance concealed, but Li Fan could vaguely sense the excitement in him. Taoist friend, your methods are truly extraordinary. 7 days of test questions, not a single error. Impressive, impressive. He spoke sincerely. When you're in business, you have to uphold the word. Trust. Since you offered such a high price, you have to deliver. Li Fan stood up and patted his clothes. Can I leave now? Li Fan asked. Hold on. The Five Elders Association cultivator hurriedly stopped him. Li Fan's expression changed, about to erupt, but then he heard the other's explanation. You've been here for so long, Taoist friend. Please accept this small token as a token of our appreciation. Saying that, the Five Elders Association cultivator handed him a small vial. This is. Li Fan took it, his divine sense scanning it. Inside, he found 19 enlightenment pills. He pretended to ponder for a moment, then looked at Zhou Qingong and the Five Elders Association cultivator again. But he didn't say anything more, instead, he burst out laughing. Interesting, it seems we'll be seeing each other often. I'll take this. Li Fan put away the enlightenment pills, stepped out of the secret room, and left Yulin Island. Zhou Qingong, pretended to be confused, asking, what did he mean by that? The Five Elders Association cultivator snorted, turning his head to look at Li Fan's clone. Your intelligence gathering this time has been a major failure. It's very likely that you've been deceived by He Zhenghao all along. This person is not as simple as he seems. Li Fan's face changed, looking somewhat bewildered. Why do you say that? We weren't the only ones trying to get the test questions from the 10,000 Immortals Alliance this time. But this time, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance was incredibly secretive. Our usual channels were useless, and only we succeeded. And the accuracy of the test questions was terrifyingly high. The Five Elders Association cultivator's tone was deep. He Zhenghao's background is probably not just the Heng family. Is that so? Li Fan was shocked. The Five Elders Association cultivator glared at him, looking like he was disappointed in him. You can tell from that person's behavior just now. Clearly, this isn't the first time they've done this. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. Home, My Longevity Simulation, The Shadow of Great Britain. Hidden Assassin, My Longevity Simulation, 4 chapters per week, read 20. Advanced chapters on Patreon, The Shadow of Great Britain, Sporadic Hidden Assassin, Sporadic. Target, 5 patrons, 7 chapters per week, 15 patrons, 14 chapters per week, to support the translations and faster release. August 1st. Dropping My Longevity Simulation. I got a job, so I will be dropping this web novel. Patreons will be refunded. June 27th. I am moving advanced chapters to Patreon. Some commented they saw inconsistent translated terms. I am using a plugin to replace frequent mistranslated words, however, it seems the plugin might be causing errors. SGB Chapter 98. SGB Chapter 97. SGB Chapter 96. SGB Chapter 93. SGB Chapter 92. SGB Chapter 95. Chapter 428 to 429. Chapter 438. Chapter 437. Chapter 436. Chapter 435. Chapter 434. Chapter 433. Chapter 432. Chapter 431. Chapter 430. Chapter 427. Chapter 426. Chapter 425. Chapter 419, Chapter 415, Chapter 414, Chapter 424, Chapter 423, Chapter 422, Chapter 421, Chapter 420, Chapter 418, Chapter 417, Chapter 416, Chapter 413, Chapter 412, SGB Chapter 91, SGB Chapter 90, SGB Chapter 89, SGB Chapter 88, SGB Chapter 87, SGB Chapter 86, SGB Chapter 85, SGB Chapter 84, SGB Chapter 83, SGB Chapter 82, SGB Chapter 81, SGB Chapter 80, SGB Chapter 79, SGB Chapter 78, SGB Chapter 77, SGB Chapter 76, SGB Chapter 75, SGB Chapter 74, SGB Chapter 73, SGB Chapter 72, SGB Chapter 71, SGB Chapter 43, SGB Chapter 70, SGB Chapter 69, SGB Chapter 68, SGB Chapter 67, SGB Chapter 66, SGB Chapter 65, SGB Chapter 64, SGB Chapter 63, SGB Chapter 62, SGB Chapter 61, SGB Chapter 60, SGB Chapter 59, SGB Chapter 58, SGB Chapter 57, SGB Chapter 56, SGB Chapter 55, SGB Chapter 54, SGB Chapter 53, SGB Chapter 52, SGB Chapter 51, SGB Chapter 50, SGB Chapter 49, SGB Chapter 48, SGB Chapter 47, SGB Chapter 46, SGB Chapter 45, SGB Chapter 44, Ha Chapter 91, Ha Chapter 90, Chapter 411, Ha Chapter 88 to 89, Chapter 409 to 410, SGB Chapter 42, SGB Chapter 41, SGB Chapter 40, SGB Chapter 39, SGB Chapter 38, SGB Chapter 37, SGB Chapter 36 Free. SGB Chapter 35. SGB Chapter 27. SGB Chapter 26. SGB Chapter 34. SGB Chapter 33. SGB Chapter 32. Chapter 408.